All right, and we're live with our fourth podcast. So tonight we're going to be going over the competitive scene of DBD, how we all got started with it, how it has evolved, and where we see the comp scene going. I'm Vampire_Toothy, and tonight I am here with Ceptzzz,
Sup?
Autzdarva, VeryTrackDisco, QTop, Justyn, and HamdaN. So, as a quick heads up, for me, I'm Vamp. I've been playing the game for about 3,600 hours now. I'm an Oni main, and I also play a lot of Blight and some Demogorgon and a few other killers as well. And recently, I got involved with the competitive scene because of the fact that I found it really interesting as an opportunity to go against other experienced players. But I'll allow everybody a chance to introduce themselves. So we'll start out with Ceptzzz.
Hi, my name's Ceptzzz. I'm a Ghostface main for some reason, and I play this game way too much.
Alright, so now we'll move on to Otz. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I, through a bunch of unlikely coincidences, started playing this game, and I've come to love it and to be very involved in the community as much as I can because it has given so much to me, and I couldn't be happier to share the podcast with you guys today.
Awesome, and Disco, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is VeryTrackDisco. I've been playing this game for 2 years now. I think the community is great. I think the members are great. And I just enjoy playing Dead by Daylight. And I'm honored to be on the podcast. Thank you for inviting me.
Anytime, and QTop, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, what's up? My name is QTop. I mainly play Survivor, but I've gotten into Killer a little bit more. I have like 2,000 hours in the game. I got into comp because of VeryTrackDisco. And then, but yeah, that's basically it. And thank you for inviting me to the podcast. I appreciate it.
Sure thing, and Justyn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, what's going on? My name is Justyn, or Jay, as a bunch of people call me. I got about 4,500 hours in the game. I've been playing since 2017. Played both sides, but primarily Survivor and competitive. And yeah, glad to be here.
And HamdaN, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I'm HamdaN. I'm a 5,000-hour Survivorman, and I am also a competitive player for Team Sweater Force.
Awesome, and it's really great to have everybody here tonight. So, our first topic for tonight will be, why did any of us get into the comp scene? Like, what are our stories? So, for me, I started up with BOTB, which, for me, I used to be the kind of player who was like, oh, you know what, why would anybody ever give the comp scene a try? Because DBD is not competitive, right? Like, and that's the thing, that's the mindset I had before, but when BOTB had first started up, I was actually invited by Shan's team, Nico Ni, where they actually wanted me to try out my first tournament because the original killer wasn't able to play for them in that tournament. So when I actually started practicing against them, I kind of realized that, I had like the wrong mindset all along, where it's like, it's not that DBD is competitive, but like, I started viewing it as a way where you as an experienced player could start going against other really good players and just see what happens. So for me, even though I flopped really hard in BOTB, I saw it as an opportunity to keep on going and to experiment with more ideas, and because of that, I started carrying that on into the D Live tournaments hosted by Boomer Live and Polyester, and then I think I was also part of the G Fuel tournament after that, and then Under the Radar directly after the G Fuel tournament, and it's just been a fun time just, understanding that scene of the game a lot more. So that's just my story so far. If anybody else would like to share their experience.
I can begin if that's okay with everybody. I'll break the ice a bit.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
I remember just doing my usual thing, just playing the game on stream like many of us do. And I just casually just queue up with these four survivors who all have the same name, that's like a clan tag. And these guys were on another level. And I'm like, oh my god, what are these guys doing? So I get my ass kicked, of course. But the next time I see them, I'm like, all right, I've learned. I'm gonna try it again. So I get my ass kicked again, obviously, and it made me think, all right, I'm gonna find a way to beat them. So I went out of my way to think about how they played and see if I could, maybe prepare the same way they prepare and, try to be at the same level. And the next time I played against them, hey, I did a little bit better and I ended up beating them. And eventually I reached out to these players and we did some scrims, and that's how I learned of competitive DBD. And slowly I just helped in some tournaments here and there, did some fill-ins until I was basically talking to Hexy and he was like, you should totally play in this best of the best tournament. And I just put a lot of stuff aside to just really practice and get into it. And it was quite the experience.
I remember that. Was that like was that one game the one you were playing like Freddy and you had like a special build equip for that, right?
Yeah, it was, because I was thinking to myself, wow, this guy's, right now I have a lot more perspective, of course. This was, a long time ago. But I was like, these guys are so good. Just play on tournaments, let the rest of us just have fun. And they did play in tournaments, in fact. So I thought to myself, all right, I only have a couple thousand hours. These guys are like, I don't like 5,000-6,000 hours at the time. How can I beat them? What can I do? And the thought of like sitting down and thinking, okay, this is what they do. This is how I cannot play them. That strategy, that analysis, I found that really exciting, and it was really, really fun to try it out and be like, okay, I caught them off guard. That really worked. Can I do this again? And then realizing that there is just so much more to DBD, and when 4 survivors play as a team, they can do so much more that you don't really see in a public game. That's what really made me curious about competitive DBD.
And that's really good because it shows like instead of like being like you know what, there's nothing I could have done about it. It was like that learning moment where it's like, hey, you know what, there's actually something else I can do to learn from and try to improve on my own experience to see if I can beat them the next time around.
Exactly. That is such an important part of it. I think understanding that there's almost always something that you can go back to and improve would make a lot of people a lot happier playing this game. But I want to hear what everybody else went through to get into comp, though.
Yeah, so who would like to take the torch next here?
I guess I'll jump in if that's all right.
Sure.
I get this question pretty often about how I got, started in comp and involved with the scene. My story is a little unique in that I actually was kind of forced into comp, if you will. If you remember the team named Instant Dodge, it was kind of a perennial North American team. They had a long history and very successful. They pretty much were involved in the scene since its beginning. Basically, the team was going through some roster changes at the time, and they needed a sub for one of their upcoming matches. The captain at the time, Free Kill 1999, who you may have heard of, he basically, me, him, and Disco were in a call, and he basically said that they needed me to sub for them. So I was kind of just forced into the scene. We ended up, playing pretty much a perfect match that the next day when we had the match. And, I kind of stayed on the roster as a full-time sub. I got more interested in the comp scene, kind of learned more about what it was all about and how it was different from the normal game. Got involved in more tournaments, and then from there on out, kind of worked my way up to main roster. Participated in Hexy's BOTB tournament, and then, after we had an early round exit, which was unfortunate, the team decided to go in different ways because some members stopped playing comp altogether. And then I found my way over to Team Oracle, which was, obviously finished as a second place finalist in BOTB.
All right, and who would like to go next?
I mean,
I guess I can go if that's okay. Right, you
Yeah,
can go,
you
Jeff,
can
sure.
go. You can go.
Well, I was gonna say, so from the moment I started playing this game, just my approach to it has always been, well, most things, I'm very competitive in most games I play in. If I play something, I really want to improve, and that's all I'm ever really fixated on. So I think it was in early 2018, I just randomly was looking through the Twitch directory of DBD, and I found at the time it was a Tide Time tournament, which was one that ID actually won. And I started watching it, and I was just infatuated at how how crazy some of these players were, and how as a squad, how good some of these teams were. And thought damn, this is what I really, really wanted to do. So by absolute crazy chance, at some point, I was in just a random public game, and I actually came across Free Kill, the captain of ID. And I talked to him, and I said, I told him, I said, Free Kill, how do I get into something like this? And he told me, he said, just keep working hard and find a good squad and just try. Because Free Kill was always about making the comp scene a lot bigger. He really, really was passionate about it at the time, and he really wanted NA to be a good region. So I first decided to finally pursue comp at about 3,500, 4,000 hours when I felt ready. And my first tournament, my first big tournament was actually VOTB as well. And I had the opportunity a few times to actually practice with ID. I swift with a lot of the ID people at the time. We became very good friends, and it kind of flew off from there. The biggest thing for me is the more better competition I see, the better I want to become. So that's pretty much what inspires me, is seeing people who I think are maybe even better than me. It's always a motivator to me to improve. And after BOTB, my team at the time disbanded because everyone wanted to go their own way as well. And I found Sweater Force. No, sorry. First, I actually found Miracle 4K, which is Disco's current team. Disco helped me improve a lot. He taught me a lot about comp itself. And from there, I found Sweater Force. And if it really wasn't for actually Jay, Free Kill, and Disco at the time, I probably wouldn't have been doing it today, which I'm very thankful for.
All right, and Disco, you said you wanted to go next, correct?
Yeah, I'll take the torch. So how I originally started with Comp DVD was I actually picked up Dead by Daylight as a side game to play because a few of my friends were begging me to play the game because, you know, we all know Swift is fun. I used to play a lot of competitive first-person shooters. I was extremely invested into CS:GO, where, you know, for me it was always the more grind you put in, the more work you put in, the better you become. So for me, I always had a competitive nature, and so when I first found that DBD was actually doing tournaments, through obviously the person that we all have in common here is Freakill 1999. I was like, this is interesting, and I saw how good the players were, how how good the killers were, and just my competitive nature sparked my interest to start playing or take Comp DBD more seriously because I didn't think I would end up playing on a team because, like I said, it's hard to start out when you're just some random nobody. But once you start hanging out with more people, like I said, playing together and just establishing friendships. Luckily for me, I was able to start off with the best North American team that ever has existed, ID, because I was friends with a lot of the people. I was friends with Free Kill. I was friends, and then I started becoming friends with Blazer and Chaos just because I started swifting with them more. And then I eventually came to the point where roster changes were happening, and since I was very close to them, I was invited to fill as a sub, and then eventually was promoted to a Brain Master. And then from that point on, I mean, we all know what happened, right? The ID, unfortunately, had an early exit round one, which for some people was, what's the word? Was discouraging. But I think we all knew. I think we came into that tournament knowing that was our last tournament. And for me, I personally didn't want to stop since I have already worked so hard and came so far. So I decided to start my own team after BOTB, which is Miracle 4K. And ever since then, I've been just putting the grind.
And we also do have QTop and Ceptzzz, so if one of you want to also go through your introduction first as well.
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. So I'm probably the newest player to DVD here. I started back in June 2019, actually the day that Ghostface released, because that's the reason I bought the game is because he released. And I only kind of got an interest in comp DVD about like I think maybe 5 months ago, maybe I think. It's when I first made a team with actually with Squid and a few others. And we didn't play any tournaments that time, but we did some scrims against other teams, and we were a good team. And then that disbanded, and I got another team with Squid, and where we actually went to a alpha tournament. It was like kind of like a starting tournament, like this guy's first tournament, and we won that, which that actually inspired me to want to pursue Comp DVD. But unfortunately, after that team split up, we I had no other teams to go to, so I've been kind of on and off with CompDB. I've been wanting to get back into it, but I just can't find a team to play with, unfortunately. But I still have a huge interest in it. I've been following it like crazy, and yeah, I hope to get back into a tournament and a team someday.
And QTop,
Basically, I came to DBD to pursue content originally. I used to play Fortnite competitive. I know it's kind of gross, but for like 2 years. And then I came here, just started creating content, making friends. And then I got really into BOTB, like watching it and everything. And I thought it was cool. And I've always been really competitive, obviously, through the 2 years that I played Fortnite. And it basically just struck me as something that I used to do and something more exciting and give DBD like, I don't know, like more motivation to keep playing it, I guess. And then I had some talks with Justyn and became friends with Disco. Then after BOTB, Disco made Miracle 4K, and I was on that for, I don't know, like a month or two. And then the schedules didn't really line up, and now I'm on Team Deity, and that's where we're at now.
All right. And so we have like quite a few interesting stories here. So a lot of us have like a lot of different reasons to why we got into the comp scene, but a lot of it comes from the fact that, for me especially, I would just go into a public match and I would just say, I know exactly how this match is gonna go. Like, it feels like the same kind of game every single round. Then you get that one team, and all of a sudden, that's what kind of sparks your interest when you see those good teams that can actually really, like, what's the best way to put it? They can really like ruin your day, and you just kind of look at that as a way to improve. Or you know what? Maybe you're looking at Twitch, you find a really good tournament with a lot of really good players. So like a lot of us have like a lot of different reasons as to why we'd want to be part of the comp scene. Now for me, when I first joined up DVD back in 2017, I think it was actually June or July of 2017. I remember that at that time, pretty much Nurse and Billy were like the only killers that people considered to be really good. So in the comp scene back then, you'd pretty much only ever see those two killers. Maybe there might be another one that I might be forgetting, but how would we all say the comp scene has evolved, as in like, options wise? This could be in perks, killers, or even maps. How do you feel like it has evolved so far?
Uh, I think the comp scene right now, I think Nurse will always remain number one. I don't think that's debatable. Any any chance any team gets to play Nurse, they're gonna take it. I think I was the earliest person here, not the earliest person, but the youngest. I mean, I just joined Comp DBD. I think towards the start of 2019, I believe, and I think everybody else here joined after that. And I mean, the meta back then was before Spirit came out. It was always Billy Nurse, and then even when I joined, Spirit came into the picture, and it's always been Nurse Spirit. But it's been interesting because back then there weren't a lot of tournaments, and back then people weren't. It wasn't as open-minded, if you understand what I'm saying. It was always, oh, you're gonna play Nurse, you're gonna play Spirit with these add-ons, these rules, and they're gonna call it a day and just see who which team is better at the end of the day. But with it now, I mean, we have so many killers, right? PH. Who else?
I also think there's a lot of credit to be given to the fact that tournament organizers have gotten a lot better at setting rules that encourage variety.
Right.
They'll ban certain maps. They'll maybe encourage some killer variety by banning certain add-ons and encouraging others. I think that's also helped a lot, because having a tournament that is about hooks, and it's not just about how quickly you can down everybody or you can face camp someone and catch someone with no it. I think that's very, very positive. And the tournaments I've been seeing have been getting better and better, and the formats have been getting more and more interesting and encouraging more and more diversity, which I think is great.
Oh, I remember when DVD tournaments used to be point based. Now, the DVD tournament is
The
point
old part-time
based.
tournaments.
Everybody would just like weird champions, like, how is this? Why is this a thing? Because, like I said, as I said, it has evolved so much and has became so complex that, like, looking at it now it's nothing compared to what it was back then. Like, we have a whole entire rule set based on hook stages. Some tournaments even going deeper with points being deducted if you're bringing items and add-ons. But back then it was just, this is what you can run, and is point base. Is just, it was insane.
Oh,
I'm glad we moved away from that.
What's the worst example you've seen in a point base tournament?
Oh,
Like the
I
most
mean-
ludicrous thing you've seen happen in a point base.
Well, I mean, I think someone alluded to this earlier, but back in the Tide Time tournament days, I remember ID was involved in a final where basically all they had to do, because of the point system in the tournament, all they had to do was literally down someone once with Leatherface. They could Bloodlust 3 a jungle gym or whatever, down someone and face camp them with their saw out the entire time, and they'd just be guaranteed a win.
Did they do that very skillfully, or was it hard? I
No,
wonder.
I mean it was very very easy to do that. You catch one survivor, you face camp them, you win. You literally win the tournament just like that.
For the record, so that everyone's on the same page, when we say point based, we mean like blood point based. So
Yeah.
whoever has the most points when you
Yeah.
tally the scores. So you would have these silly situations where I've played in a tournament that was based around BP, and you would have the silly situations when survivors would be constantly running into you and doing all kinds of like sabo plays and stuff just to squeeze any
Yep.
points. And at the end of the game,
Yeah.
you're like, just leave, dude.
They're squeezing every point they can, and I haven't seen a blood point based tournament in a while, and I'm glad we moved away from that because it's very what's the word for it? It's cheeky. Like I said, you can do any
Yep.
single little thing you do as a killer and survivor counts, and it was just it's funny.
I did
just thinking
enjoy
about it now.
Kites tournaments though. I ate that stuff up. I watched it. I thought it was really fun to watch at least.
Yeah, I mean the scene has kind of developed over the years, right? Where like I guess a couple years ago, the tournaments were a little bit more fun based, or I don't know if that's the right term, but you know they used to have tournaments where you have the killers have to run adept perks, maybe +1 perk. And
Mhm.
nowadays it's all about super ultra competitive. You know, let's make the rules as straightforward and competitive as possible. Where killers have the choice to run whatever perks they want, whatever add-ons they want up to a certain limit, and whoever does that to the best of their ability is crowned the best, right? So I think over the, like Otz was kind of alluding to earlier, the scene has kind of developed over the years where it's taking this hardcore ultra super competitive mode, which some people think is good, some people think is bad, but overall I think like Ott said, the tournament organizers have done a really good job at kind of making these rule sets that encourage at least some variety.
Yeah, that's why I think BOTB was actually a huge blessing because their rule set and how they allowed certain add-ons and all the perks. I think that was the best example of fair rules I've seen in a very long time. And I think pretty much that's what every other tournament network has started to work around is that rule set. And I think that's what
even then, I do remember people being very, very upset about the scoring system in BOTB, and it goes to show, like I see where the criticism came from. But it doesn't matter. No matter what you do in a tournament where one side has to play killer and then survivor and then the other way around, there's always going to be situations that are unwinnable, and I think it's very, very difficult to make like a set of rules that makes everybody happy and has no flaws whatsoever.
Yeah, that's why I think the rules based on hook states is better than hooks itself. Because I think in BOTB, if someone went to struggle, they weren't rewarded the point for the second hook, correct?
I think you are correct.
Yeah, so I think that was the
Yeah.
only flaw I saw because the killer along was gypped out of a free points just because someone was left to struggle, which is, I guess that could be used as a strat for the survivors.
That could be improved as well. The only problem, of course, is that if you do that, then suddenly the killer has a huge incentive to face cam those last 20 seconds.
Yeah.
No matter how you take at it, there might be better or worse alternatives. There's always going to be one scenario that is unpleasant to watch, where the killer just camps or the survivors just let them die, or so it's very, very hard to make rules that please everybody. I've come to find.
Definitely.
But a good effort was made, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, every DBD tournament, you learn something new from it, and that's what happened with I think the D Live tournaments. I think when somebody started complaining, oh, blood points is not fair, it's not really skill based, and then we started, tournament directors started doing, oh, let's just do hooks, and then it became, oh, hooks is not fair because, for example, if you have to force camp somebody to second, you don't get rewarded any points for that, and that's when people started even diving into it deeper. It's like, oh, let's make it hook stages, and now, I think. At its current state, I think DBD is as fair in terms of scoring system, as fair as it gets. Hook stages, Gen's done, Survivors escape, and we've even D-Live, a big tournament organization has done it to even, how many points you're getting per hook stages. You've been hooked. Does that make sense? Like you get max points if you haven't been hooked, or you get less points the more you've been hooked, and it's just very complex as to what it was before, which is very interesting to see develop. So
Yeah, without a doubt, because I do remember back when it was based on blood points, and then it started shifting towards hooks and then hook states, and I feel like hook states are like the most fair because of the fact that and, the other conditions as well, where like the more you've been hooked, the less points you'll get when you escape. But yet, as a killer, if you like force a second stage because maybe they slipped up and you want to punish that, it also still rewards you for that. So I feel like it's a fair way to reward someone for having like good game sense and good awareness of what is actually going on around them. Now, with that being said, we've seen how the scoring system has evolved, but how about the killer choices? So as I mentioned before, you would only ever see like Billy and Nurse because that's kind of how it was in like 2017 and earlier than that as well. But nowadays we have a lot more killers, including killers who have been buffed. So think like Hag, who had gotten a massive buff back in I think 2.1.0 if I'm not mistaken. So, she's significantly better now. You have new killers like Pyramid Head. You have Blight, who, Disco, I think you were actually advocating for the fact that Blight was like one of the next best choices, right?
yeah, so I started as a survivor, but eventually I wanted to move on to the killer role, as I think it holds a lot of power. As an individual, not everybody can play killer, period. And then imagine playing killer at a very high level consistently. And I think the earliest I've played was 2019. Back then, I think Spirit was out, but obviously, I mean, the choices have evolved, right? You always had Nurse slash Spirit, and then it would be like Billy. But then now with all the new killers, Pyramid Head came out, Blight came out. Who else?
Freddy got reworked.
Freddy got reworked. It was a lot of stuff. So as of right now, obviously the introduction of new killers have revamped the comp scenes. You can see some tournaments actually opting to ban Nurse and Spirit within the first few rounds. So this way that newer teams can adapt more, since not everybody is going to have a godlike Spirit or a godlike Nurse. But it's very interesting to see how the killer choices have developed, and the personal picks of each individual killer from each team is also differs. So
Yeah, I remember like one of the first D lives. I think the game was the first map, and I think every game except for 2 was Doctor. It was something like even Doctor now we're seeing a lot depending on the map, and I think it's a good thing. Like I think variety is always good. It's good for viewers. It's good for players, right? Like no one gets bored, and you can adapt to more things. There's more skill sets and strats being implemented. And I would like to see more of that, but I don't know how they could do that better.
I agree. I also think it's a testament, as you guys were hinting, how the game has changed. How you've gone from like having 1 to 2 or 3 killers that were a huge notch above the rest, to now giving smaller and bigger buffs around, so much that some killers, even though they might not be overall as strong as some others, they can situationally be very unexpected and be very, very dangerous. So I think that also you see that in the competitive scene, but I also think that also extends to the main game. I think many of the killers that used to be very overlooked and very underpowered now are a lot stronger. Just in the game in general, like say Legion after the small buffs, a Trapper which can now reset traps, Hag after her massive change, Wraith to a degree after his small buff. All those things I think are really, really positive, and they go to show that you don't need to play 1 or 2 killers to win.
Yeah, like I know a huge one is like before summer of 2020, Bubba was an absolute meme just seeing games, but now people are actually like, oh, it's a Bubba, we actually might lose. So like people are actually they don't just see killers like that as a meme anymore.
When the blood points thing was rampant, you would actually see a lot of Bubba in old competitive, because he was the killer that is gonna secure at least the 1K and possibly the 2K. I think I participated in a tournament once where we pulled out the Bubba in finals, and unfortunately we ended up losing to the same strategy, because the rule set in the tournament was poorly made. But it's amazing to see how it's come. Like when Nurse and Spirit are banned, it's not like, oh, I have to play like Pyramid Head now. Like depending on who you play and your play style, you can pick Blight, you can pick Pyramid Head, you can pick Oni, you can pick Freddy, and it is just way different from what it was before.
I think it's important to note that along kind of with the rule sets for the tournaments, that it's important that the staff and the organizers make sure that the add-ons and perks and perk combos that are allowed for each killer is kind of generally fair and agreed upon between the participants.
Yeah.
You know, a killer like Wraith, if they're not allowed stronger add-ons, might struggle way more, or they probably will struggle way more than Spirit or Nurse with, you know, even decent add-ons.
It's actually really funny. Do you guys recall how it happened over at the BOTB tournament? How the add-ons changed as the tournament went on?
Oh yeah, that was like a 3-hour, 4-hour call. I remember that.
Oh yeah, and because one big reason is that Spirit got bugged, right?
Yes, the Spirit had an unfair advantage. There were 2 bugs going on with her. Number one, which also affected other killers, is that her DS stun, or you know, anytime a survivor broke free of her grasp with DS, for example, she would recover in like 2 seconds, and survivors take like 1 second to, you know, start moving. So basically, a DS was a free down. So that obviously was this. Sorry, go ahead.
You can keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, no, that was super busted. It affected many killers such as Spirit, Wraith, Pig, and that gave her a massive advantage because she didn't have to worry about decisive very much. And also, the footstep sounds that she normally makes, which are very subtle, were completely gone. So you couldn't even see or hear her coming at all, which made counterplay even harder. And I remember this funny discussion that everybody had in the tournament organization where they were like, okay, how about we just ban Spirit just with brown add-ons? And everyone was like, oh my god, it's impossible, it's gonna be so hard. And still, everyone still played a Spirit with brown add-ons, which just goes to show just how strong Spirit is, even with just brown add-ons. I found that very, very funny, how people were like, nah, we need good add-ons. Nah, Spirit is fine, even with brown add-ons.
Didn't that bug exist? Like, I know a lot of the, especially like top, like more kind of top of like tier lists and stuff like that, killers like Freddy and Huntress stuff. I know Huntress is especially bad for that DS bug, because the first time I had that bug on Huntress, I got DS and then immediately just hatched the person as they're running away. Like, this had no chance to escape.
That was really dirty. Freddy, I think, was probably the worst offender, because with Freddy, you can do this little technique where you put a snare on the ground and then pick up a survivor and make them step on it. So if you had the slow, like if they had 1 second to run away from you with a 15% movement penalty, and you could literally just pretty much lunge out of the stun and hit them. It was so ridiculous.
Dude, imagine that.
Disgusting.
Imagine if that bug existed with Coup de Grace in the game.
Oh jeez.
Yeah. You don't even need to hold forward.
Might as well not even run DS.
Yeah, but that, I mean, that's kind of like the nature of the beast with DBD, right? We all know the amount of bugs and, you know, issues that come up with this game, and sometimes these things happen mid-event or mid-tournament, and the, you know, staff have to adjust for that accordingly. So, you know, a bug might be introduced if there's a patch in between, you know, weekends or days of a tournament, and they might have to adjust the add-ons or perks that are allowed for a certain killer just based on what's going on. So I think it's a little bit you have to give them more credit, and it's a little bit difficult to understand if you aren't as involved in the scene, but those are like real things that, you know, we have to deal with in the competitive scene.
Actually, adding to what Jay is saying, I know like in other big competitive games like League, their LAN tournaments actually are patched on the previous patch that is not the current one. So like if something gets updated, their next tournament or round is played still on the old patch, just in case there's a bad bug like that would really affect a lot of things. So I think it would be cool if behavior actually had, well, we'll say it grew enough where they actually decided to make like a tournament mode where we could actually play on the previous patch that's not like the next one, just so like a bug like that could be avoided if it was discovered in the main game.
Oh,
so
like a rollback to play on the previous patch.
Exactly, yes.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if the way they update the game would allow for that. I actually played a game a long time ago that every time they made an update, you would play on those on those regulations that were called, but you could roll it back. So if you wanted to, you could go on your settings, go in a private match, and just play with the original unpatched game. And obviously, all kinds of crazy stuff would happen.
Yeah, pretty much like that. Yeah.
I don't know if they would ever have that ability, or if they
Yeah, I
would
don't
be
know.
invested.
Yeah, they probably would
in-
not invest in that.
Honestly, I think things like fixing the camera, which they eventually did
Yep.
just
Oh, that
recently.
camera change, it was so nice.
Yeah,
Oh, that was
I
awesome.
think
I loved it.
little things like that would probably be a lot less trouble. And if we could focus our efforts into asking for just those small gestures, I think that would be so much nicer.
Yeah, right.
It was really funny that the camera got patched right before they had a few big events. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
themselves. So
whether you like competitive DBD or not, you can't deny that it exists. It happens. Tournaments are being streamed on Twitch. There are tournaments that are sponsoring the tournaments. Did I say tournaments? There are companies that are sponsoring these tournaments. I mean, for example, the latest company or corporation, G Fuel, they hosted their own Dead by Daylight tournament, which obviously they had to have help from because they have no idea of anything. But it was still, interesting to see because like whether you like it or not, comp DBD exists, and I'm just happy that the devs acknowledge it or at least have noticed it because I think what was it during BOTB where one of the devs came into Hexy's stream and we're like, oh, we're just interested in watching the tournament, but like I think at the end of it, we know they would never ever, make a quote unquote a comp scene out of DBD, but it's nice knowing that we get some sort of acknowledgement for
Yeah.
this is big. Like it's time investment not only from the players but from the tournament staff making the game, organizing everything, and it's
Yeah, anytime a game, like a casual game especially, like I know when DVD was first made, it was definitely designed as a casual kind of like PvP horror game, right? And once a game takes that step towards an actual competitive level, I think that's a huge step in the growth of the game for sure. Because then people actually start seeing more of a reason to play the game besides just like dumb fun. They can actually find a reason to improve and all that stuff. Like with every competitive game nowadays, like obviously there were some that were kind of built for competition, like stuff like Counter-Strike and I guess like League of Legends and stuff like that. But then when you see a casual game like this grow into a competitive one, that's just a huge step for any game, honestly.
right. And like I said, for the devs to acknowledge that these tournaments do happen,
especially.
and that they're not gonna fully invest in it, but they have watched us compete and play and just have fun, because at the end of the day, this is, even though it is a competitive scene, this is fun for most of us. Like this is just the competitive nature of some people, and it's just great to be, for the devs to be at least what's the word I'm looking for? Moving on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think the beauty of it comes from, like, I think DBD is one of the only games where I know that so many tournaments have come up that are actually backed by the community and not the devs alone.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which I think
I've never
really awesome.
personally seen that.
silly lightning round question without trying to, kidnap the whole conversation.
Yeah,
Maybe
absolutely,
real
go for it.
quick. What's everybody's stance on, should the game itself be balanced around competitive?
No.
No, I would say no,
No,
because the
probably
market
not,
is
no.
always based on the casual player, right? That's just where the money comes from. It's the casual player, the new players. I think if you only patch for the top 1%, then that might be really, really annoying for everyone else.
Yeah, DVD at the end of the
Okay.
day is a nice casual game that we enjoy playing.
All right,
So-
like I'm gonna play advocate, the devil's advocate. I think I'm with you guys. I wouldn't want to like fine tune this game to like the top percentage, tournament players, but I also don't. It doesn't sit right with me that the game should be a party game and that everything should be balanced around someone with 20 hours in the game. That doesn't feel right
Yeah.
either.
Of course.
that
So
too.
okay, I think we're gonna find agreement. But what about other games such as Valorant, Overwatch, that are actually balanced around?
They like
What
I
do those
think,
games
there's-
have that this one does not?
So I can
a lot
actually
of
explain
games
a little bit.
that were mentioned before, like stuff like Counter-Strike, then Valorant, Overwatch. Those games were built from the ground up to be competitive. So anyone who says, "Oh, like Overwatch is a casual game," that just doesn't make sense, because those games were designed with the intent of them going esport professional.
And they
So,
are symmetrical, as opposed to that.
Yeah, they're completely symmetrical, yeah.
That I imagine is probably the biggest deal.
Yeah, and I think in order to do that, they would have to change the game with only knowledge of what would like a Swift do with X or Y, correct? Because obviously tournaments are based off Swift and not solo queue, so I think it'd be kind of weird for them to adjust that way. Because then how do you keep solo queue, I guess, in a decent shape?
So I can actually explain a little bit of my perspective on this, and afterwards I would actually like to give QTop a chance to talk because he's been a little bit silent for a while. So,
Oh, my dog started freaking out.
oh, I gotcha. So,
Let his dog speak. I want to hear what he has
Well,
Yeah,
my girlfriend
I'll-
took her. Now she's gone.
I want to let you talk first, and I'll go over my point, okay?
Hmm. Oh, but wait, about what?
Yeah. So,
Like,
just what are your thoughts on like if the game should be casual or balanced towards the competitive scene?
I definitely don't think it should be balanced towards comp because there's only like the DVD community, like from going from like games like Fortnite, CS:GO, all that kind of stuff is way smaller, and it's like that top 1%. And if you try to put everybody else onto that platform, then it's just not going to really work. Things like HamdaN said, like the solo queue won't really work. It'll just kind of be more geared towards Swift. And if somebody doesn't come on here to Swift, then they're just not going to have as much fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, without a doubt. And like my thoughts on this is that when it comes to DVD, I think it's also very important to keep in mind that there is a huge discrepancy in how people can perform in this game. So, for instance, a person who just picked up the game maybe last year, right? They're not really gonna do anywhere near as well as someone who has been playing the game since like 2016. They've been like maybe playing nerds back to back every single day, and there's a huge discrepancy there where once you get to a certain point in the game, you end up making a lot of people end up feeling like they're not really having fun anymore going against that. Whereas the only way that someone can go against like your level of experience and have fun with it is someone who has the mindset of, oh, you know what? I've also been playing the game for a long time and I want to improve. So you need to have the mindset, which not everybody's going to have over a game that is advertised to be fairly casual rather than competitive. So like when you get to the killers who are considered to be competitive, like let's say Spirit, I don't know if anybody's a believer in Deathslinger at all, so I'll leave him as an iffy note there. But you get certain killers who are made to down experienced players, and like they don't have fun with that. And then you have some killers who just want to chill out, and then they get the 4-man DS Unbreakable squad, and then they get fucked over. And it's like most of them are not going to have fun with that unless they're in the mindset of, hey, I want to improve and I want to be part of this side of the game. So it's really important to keep the discrepancy in mind because I think what makes the game so fun is that not every game is a sweat fest. Most of your games, in fact, are just, casual games where you can screw around with like that random build on Clown or that random Legion build or whatever. As a survivor, you can put on flip-flop every now and then, just something silly. So a lot of what makes the game fun is that you're getting the variety, which when it comes down to it, I feel like the game should be geared towards like a nice little middle ground where it keeps in mind that you should be focusing on the fun of the game, whereas the competitive side of the game should be left up to tournament holders because they can set the rules to allow it to be more balanced or to allow certain plays to be made with other killers that may not be considered otherwise. And that is my general thought on that.
I see the validity of that. I also think that that's pretty much how it should be looked at. The game maybe shouldn't be balanced around someone that just played their second game of Survivor ever, and maybe also not around someone who has had 12,000 hours of Survivor. But if someone has 12,000 hours of Survivors and they can loop a killer in that structure for 5 minutes and there's no counterplay, maybe you should listen to that person. Maybe you should pay attention to what the people that have played the most are capable of. If you see that a killer can perform okay when played properly, maybe that killer doesn't need to be buffed, or maybe it doesn't need to be nerfed. I think the right approach maybe should be, yes, to balance around the general audience and the average player, but also pay attention to what good experienced players do and what they can achieve and what they can do, and keep that in mind.
Without a doubt, and it's also important to keep in mind the fun factor of things. So, for instance, you could have someone that's not really strong or weak, but everybody could just really hate going against that. And ultimately, I think focusing on the fun of the game is like the most important part because, you know, there are killers that are not only really well made, but also really fun. So, like, for instance, I know that Billy is a huge example that, you know, everybody loves Billy, and for the most part, he can do fairly well in a vast majority of games as well, apart from, like, you know, the most exceptional teams ever versus, let's say, Hag, who can pretty much beat almost every single team except for, like, the absolute most coordinated teams, but, like, who's going to enjoy going against Hag, you know?
Yeah.
Or, you know, certain perks like, for instance, Object is not really like a perk that someone looks at and says, oh, that's the best perk ever, that's going to win you every game. But a lot of people look at that as like, hey, you know what? Although, yes, you did die with Object, it wasn't so fun to go against because let's say you were playing like Huntress, so you have a tiny terror radius, or, you know, you're playing Myers at Monitor and Abuse, and you have Dead Rabbits, so like they see you through the wall, or they're under the Oblivious effect. Now all of a sudden you have a perk that isn't necessarily the best perk in the entire game, but ends up creating a scenario where it's super unfun. So I think focusing on the fun factor of the game is also a really good way going forward.
I mean,
Damn, I could have said it better myself. I'm voting this man for president.
I just
Yeah,
think that there's a lot of like exploitable things or abusable things in this game. Every perk, every add-on has something that can be abused or slash exploited. Obviously, Huntress's very low terror radius can be exploited by Object, but you know it can go vice versa if you play correctly. For example, Freddy, you can equip snares or blind snares. That will totally nullify users with Object. So I feel like everything in DBD, it's very hard to balance right now because there are things made with different intentions. You know, you have
Yeah.
perks like Flip Flop made for, you know, the people who want to use Flip Flop, but then there's things in the game like DS, which is you know, always been a controversial topic. And there's things like No Ed in the game, and it's just like that was made with the intent of getting kills that maybe sometimes not totally deserved or deserved well. I don't. It's just everything in this game it's extremely hard to balance, I think.
Do elements like this often make you guys have games that, you know, it doesn't matter really if you win or lose, that you're just miserable? Because
Oh,
I do
without a doubt.
experience that from time to
Yeah.
time.
Absolutely.
You might lose really
Absolutely.
badly. Maybe the post game chat is just the icing on the cake. Sometimes it's even when you win and when you tie also. And I feel really bad. Like I feel when these things happen and I'm forced to play a certain way, and it's like, all right, so here I wanted to have fun with this stupid Wraith bill or this stupid,
Right.
you know, Trapper no add-ons, this stressing bill or whatever. And here are 5 Ojiko obsessions, each with like a gun. And what the hell am I doing?
Got the
you know?
Glock.
It's not pretty. It's not pretty. I think those scenarios where you go into the game, you queue in, and like maybe even in the loading screen because you see a Mori. I think those scenarios where you load into the game already thinking, okay, I'm going to lose, or okay, this is going to be miserable. I think that's one thing this game could really just do away with.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
get rid of perks that make you just immediately drop all hope at the start or Moris or whatever, because that is probably one of the worst things about the game that consistently keeps popping up every now and then.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like, I know that for me sometimes I'll do like a variety of killers and like so, you know, normally I'll play killers like, you know, Oni, Blight, Nurse, and a few others, but then someone might be like, hey Vamp, could you play Ghostface? And it's like, oh, alright, I'll play Ghostface, and then all of a sudden they burn Colwyn, and it's like, I know that team is gonna be pretty decent, and it's like, but because I'm Amara, I can't really switch out. Like, I don't want to back out of the lobby, obviously, but I know that going into the match, because I'm playing the killer that I picked, I know I'm not going to have fun against the team that I'm against, whether I win or lose, because it's like, you know, maybe the map will counteract my power. Like, in the case of Ghostface, it's like the corn can block your stock, and then, you know, you get, like, you know, one of the more open cold wins,
Yeah,
so you don't
it
really
also
get any
just
stealth.
feels. It also just feels bad to know that how much fun you're gonna have is already directly in control of the people that you're playing against. Because you were playing chill. You just brought an offering to get 25% more BP in the whatever category. There's a map offering, and then you notice that all the names are matching, and you notice that they all switched to
They got a key.
Yeah, and you're already
Good old
like,
Orman
oh,
key.
let me do my thing already.
Oh boy,
That
Hawkins.
feels pretty bad.
Hawkins Blade, that's always fun.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And to give the devs some credit, though, I think they actually have started addressing some of these things. I think that's evident even as recently as the test of the bloodlust removal, right? They're trying to see whether that's a mechanic that really, is it necessary and, is it fun at the end of the day? Because I don't think from a survivor perspective, anyone likes running around on, a palette or, a loop that has some counterplay, but that is completely negated by a killer just running around it 30 times and eventually just speeding up and catching up to you, right? No one likes getting caught like that. At the
Again,
same time,
lightning fast, round table
sure.
question. Was everybody okay with the test, and would everybody agree with that was a positive thing to test and to maybe
Oh, absolutely.
experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
For me, I've always felt like Bloodlust was actually like a negative influence on the game because for me, when they turned off Bloodlust, I noticed no change in my gameplay, and I felt like it was very healthy to help people get into a better mindset because one thing I actually said in a previous podcast is that Bloodlust teaches bad habits in the sense that, alright, Bloodlust 1, you can make any excuse for that, but like, after a while, a newer one anyways, will go like, oh, you know what, I'm gaining speed, this is good. Like, they'll get like the false idea that, they're being rewarded for keeping a chase up for so long and not giving up. So like, now they're in the mindset that they're being rewarded for getting more bloodlust. Now the survivor's not having fun because they can't really go out anywhere else to try out a new tile. And so the killer ends up wasting a lot of time, maybe in upwards of 45 or even a greater amount of time in terms of like seconds, and then they'll lose all the gens and then wonder what the hell happened.
That's I agree, especially with the part of the bad habits.
Yeah.
And since we all seem to be on the same page on this, I'm sure you're all aware if you ever visited the forums or checked Twitter for more than 10 minutes. There's a lot of people that saw this as a massive piece of evidence that the developers are completely disconnected from the game and that they don't know what it's like to play killer, and they saw this as a huge deal. Other than haha, you're bad. What would you attribute this line of thinking to? What do you think people that think that bloodlust must absolutely 100% stay? What do you think they're missing, or what do you think they're doing wrong?
Well, I mean, I think I'll just to wrap up my thought from before, but it kind of answers that question. I mean, people who, especially those who are newer to they have no idea what the game was like back in 2016, 2017, right?
Tell us about it.
Blood Lodge with pallets every 2
Exactly.
feet, windows on cold wind farms that you literally could run forever, double window shack, all that stuff. I mean, Bloodlust was partially introduced because of those reasons. And over time, the devs have adjusted the maps, adjusted perks, adjusted whatever it may be to get the balance more in order. But as the game progresses, I think people need to be more open and receptive to the idea that maybe these mechanics that were useful back then aren't so necessary now. And I think this is my assumption. I think because people are so used to having that as a part of their arsenal when they're playing the game, it's hard for them to let go of that. They're saying, maybe I'm not going to win so easily if I don't have this available to me.
I see that.
Yeah, that's just we all love the term entitlement. We have entitled survivors, we have entitled killers. I remember back in the day when I started, I used to thought tunneling and camping was the only way to win. But now it's like
wait, it's not?
once I
You
played the
guys-
game more and I had a different mentality that like this is not what I'm supposed to do, or I can do much more, I can do better. It changes your aspect of the game, or your outlook of the aspect of the game rather.
So wait, I've been playing the game wrong?
Don't cap and tunnel, boys.
It's a lot easier to admit that it's someone else's fault than your own. That's one for sure.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, that's what people do. They want to blame everybody but themselves.
I also think people, experience frustration because of one thing, and then when the developers do a small gesture, they take it the wrong way. So, let's say survivors have decisive strike, which is very strong, and a killer is frustrated because of decisive strike, and then he'll complain that they buff small game or detective's hunch, because they're like, why do you buff survivors when it's this whataboutism and it's this, let's complain about one thing and if anything changes, I'm just gonna make this a single issue. So I think that many killers that struggle because of like other things that don't have anything to do with bloodlust, I feel kind of insulted that that their one help is being taken away, and I can understand that a little bit better. But
And I agree. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go on. I'd love
Okay.
to.
And I agree, but like I think a lot of it is also just a lack of understanding of both roles in the game. So for instance, like I feel like a lot of times when people complain, they end up not realizing how the other side experienced that match. So for instance, like when you see Bloodlust, it's like if you only play Killer, then you end up feeling like, oh, they finally changed one perk that we had for the worst, or they took away one of our mechanics, and you're like, why would they do that? Because you're not thinking of like the Survivor experience where it's like, nobody wants to get the killer to stay at the same pallet with like for like 45 seconds getting Bloodlust 3. Like everybody wants to be in the chase for the most part. Everybody wants to have fun, and you don't really get that with Bloodlust. So like if you don't play Survivor, you'll never realize that you don't have the experience on that role. And then it's the same way for Survivors, where it's like if you don't understand the killer's experience, and then say they change DS somehow, then they would be like, oh, now I can't use DS the same way I could before. I can't really run at the killer anymore. And it's like, well, did you see what the killers are going through? So like it's a lack of understanding of both roles, and you don't even have to play both roles to understand this. Just watching somebody else play a different side can really teach you a lot.
Yeah. And people are very reluctant to any change. I remember, oh my god, Ruin, they taken away our Ruin. I am boycotting this game, and I'll only play it 60 hours a week now,
Instead of 80.
And then Ruin was nerfed, and everything was fine. And then they changed this, and everybody cries, but then it's fine. And even though there are some setbacks, the developers overall, I think the direction in general, I don't know if you guys are on board with me or if I'm alone here. I think in general, the game is getting better.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah,
so
absolutely.
for people to like resist every small change, I think it's frustrating,
It's a
Like
game that's
a-
been getting better, but it's been at a rate where like I feel like the only real issue is that the pacing's really slow, so people get really tied onto something for so long when you finally take it away, they're like, wait, what are you doing? Because they don't understand, because the changes come in really slow. So because of that, I think a lot of people get really attached to these mechanics and these perks. So I think the game has been getting better, but whenever there is a problem that needs to be addressed, it ends up staying in the game for a lot longer than it needs to. And even if like the devs do like a slip up, and like let's say there's one perk that really shouldn't be there in its current iteration, like for instance like the Ruin Undying combo, well, you see they've been making the game better, but then that one problem stays in for a little while too long, because major updates are about like 6 to 7 weeks apart.
I do agree with that.
I agree.
I'll, like, even though I am of the opinion that the game is getting better, I don't think anybody would say that it's getting better at the speed or the rate or the time that we would like, or with the priorities that I would prefer.
Yeah, I know like a
But-
lot of games, like top games especially, they have updates almost like weekly. Like I know one big one is Fortnite. They did week updates like
Mhm.
weekly for like 2 years straight.
I mean,
I
at
think
the
they're still
same
doing it.
time, from my experience in that, though, it was kind of hurting the game more than anything, because they were trying to
Absolutely,
do
yeah.
way too much in a short amount of time, and it kind of just sent the game into a hole for a while. So I think it's important to do them somewhat fast, but not like terribly fast to the point where you're just overdoing everything and ruining the game even further, even though you don't realize it. Because that's
Yeah.
something I experienced heavily in Fortnite, and it just
Yeah.
wasn't the move.
I
As
think
much-
a good pace personally for updates in a game in general is like maybe like 3 week to monthly updates. I think because
Yeah.
every week then things get rushed, and like ideas that maybe aren't the best get thrown in just for the sake of having content being put into the game. But then in a case like I can't think of a game that has like super duper crazy long updates right now. But like some games have like updates that are months and months apart, like almost yearly, and then like nothing happens. Everyone leaves the game because there's nothing new to play.
There's
No new
games that
content.
like Resident Evil Resistance. I don't know if you guys ever followed that game.
Oh
do
my.
you know what
No.
that last patch note said? It's like hey, here, we've added this and this and that. And this is the final update that we've planned so far. Good luck. Imagine if Behavior put out a patch like that. People
There would be
lose their
riots
minds.
everywhere.
Yeah.
People would lose their minds. So look, I'm grateful for that. At least that this is not a huge company that is just looking at their gross revenue and they're like, okay, this is not profitable. Let's just kill, flip the switch, kill the game. No more updates. Let's just make our new Call of Duty 2021. So
Yeah, and the idea is
for that much, I am grateful at least.
yeah, because it's always scary seeing like an announcement that says final update, because that could be literally anything. It's like the final step in that game's direction hinges on that update, because like that final update, if we use DBD for instance, could be like, oh, you know what, we decided to let Spirit phase through walls. And it's like, oh.
We introduce Ash with Metal Man as it was in the first one. Enjoy the game for the next 5 years.
Here's Nurse back with 7 blinks for you. Bye.
And here's Billy, but he can chainsaw through walls.
Yeah, and I think that comes down at the end of the day, communication with the community. Like we know that the devs they love and care for the game, but at the same point, their communication with the players is abysmal. I mean, if you, for example, you would take a look at Valorant in its early stages, every single week that passed in the early stages of Valorant, the devs were taking advices or bugs, fixes. They were taking it directly from the player because that's who's playing the game. And if you take a look at BHVR, it's just they listen to us, but then they just end up doing their own thing at sometimes, and that's where you get perks that don't need changes, and they just change it for no reason, and we're just like, this is not what we asked for. So at the end of the day, I think it comes down to communication, which I think BHVR needs to do a little bit better with the community.
I mean, that's one thing that's like huge, because Fortnite was doing all these weekly updates and not getting any input from anybody, just throwing in like planes. Oh, here you can crash into people and kill them within seconds, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think Otz kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. The most important thing, I think, at this stage of the game is get rid of all those edge cases of unfun and unbalanced. Like, no one wants to have Ebony Moris the way they are, right? Like, I think we all, no matter what side you play, I think everyone understands how busted Ebony Moris are.
I don't even want Ivories.
Yeah, Ivory Moris, whatever. The same thing that goes with being able to play a map offering on Survivor. That's let me go to the current Ormond. Granted, it's being reworked in a couple days, but just get rid of those things that make the game just super run fun, where you can play a card at hand and just ruin the experience for the other side.
And fun, not necessarily OP. Like, imagine if they made Maurice have an animation that takes 5 minutes. The killer spends 5 minutes just killing you. They just whack your corpse 5 minutes straight. That would probably be very good, because your teammates do all the gens and they escape. But imagine you're the guy being killed for 5 minutes. How amazing that would feel. There are things that are OP. There are things that are unfun to play against, and sometimes there's things that are OP and unfun, which I think Morris probably are. So yeah, very good observation that it's not just how strong it is; it's just how fun it is to play against. And this game is played with little things like that, I feel.
And I think a big example of that was like Old Legion, the classic Legion, where it's like they weren't very powerful unless you put on Frank's mixtape, yet you essentially ruined the game for like one or two people, and that was it.
And at the same time, I mean, how long was that in the game? Like
6 months?
6 months, right?
Yep, 6 months.
I guess like going back, just keep the communication up. Just try to do as good of a job communicating with the player base, what they're working on, what they're trying to fix, as much as they can. I know it's not easy for them, but we'd appreciate any feedback that they can give us.
Yeah, so like if we had like more communication, I think a lot of issues would be like we wouldn't really have as many issues, because I think ultimately what it comes down to is like if you communicate what you're doing well, then you could actually explain like how that is good or bad in advance, and I think in a lot of ways that would actually prevent a lot of like people from being upset, because now they know what to expect, and now like they can give their feedback to make sure that whatever change it is that they have cooking up, you can actually make sure that it's the right change. So, for instance, the devs were ever if there was ever a change made to, like, let's say, let's just go back to Pyramid Head, right? Because everybody has a different idea on, like, how to make him better for the game, right? I feel like had they communicate, because they communicate what they were going to do, but I feel like what would have been really cool for Pyramid Head is to communicate that they were going to change them and that they were looking for ideas on how to make them better. So, like, you could name off that there are frustrations for both sides. So, for instance, for survivors, they get frustrated when you just zone people to death, and then that's it. You never go for any cool shots, you just zone them. But then for the killer, it can be frustrating because landing your shot really depends on if the player's paying attention or not, if you're not zoning them. So I feel like having some kind of communication where, like, the devs are asking, like, what would be the best step forward would really help, because now we have the scenario where Pyramid Head ended up getting what was actually a slight buff to where, yeah, his zoning is weaker, but now he can spam his attack pretty much indefinitely.
Sorry, there was an update to PH. I didn't notice.
It
I didn't
was
notice.
just a bit
when
of
they
time
tried
ago.
to they tried to nerf the feather.
I'm kidding.
Oh,
That was a joke.
oh,
I
thought you were
mean,
memeing.
I mean, when they say they nerf Pyramid Head, if you actually played him in his core mechanics, it didn't really change him much. I mean, he's a little bit slower. You can actually abuse his nerf, quote unquote. He actually doesn't what's the word for it? He doesn't get the slowdown debuff unless you actually are physically have the sword in the ground, full animation. So you can still technically fake it. It's a lot harder to do it. But like
you can.
But like it's like when people hear, oh, they're nerf Pyramid Head, like they're given such high hopes because obviously we know what's wrong with him. But then when they actually release it and then we look at it and it's just like, this is not a nerf. This is not a buff. This is not what we asked for. It's just again, it goes down back to the communication with the players because I guess what nerf.
And
What
there will
buff?
also be these situations where you're in a corner of the map, right? You drop a pallet, he hits you through it, and now you would use the speed boost from the hit to run to the next loop, right? That's basically what you do in a chase. But now with half a second less of cooldown on successful punishments, if you have a survivor zone into a corner of the map and you hit them, they don't have time to make it to another loop. So now you go from, after this quote unquote nerf, you now have situations when you get hit by Pyramid Head and you cannot run away from the loop that you're in because you're not going to make it to the next one.
Even if they
Yeah.
miss, because, like, it's so short
Yeah.
now.
You put someone in the basement, for example, right? And you can actually hit down the stairs in the basement. So if you have range add-ons and you hit someone at the base of the stairs, or even without, by the time they come up, you're going to be able to M1 them immediately.
Wait,
So
the punishment can go down?
Yeah, they
it can go
updated
down.
that.
It can go down the basement stairs. And if you have range,
Since
it can. You cannot you cannot pull your trails over there, but you can totally do the punishment. So I think I did this today. Like someone at the base of the stairs, you hit them, and if they come all the way up, it's basically like a Huntress situation where she M2s and M1s. So they've created that for Pyramid Head. So they solved one small issue and created another small issue, and it makes me wonder why we even bother in the first place.
So, if I had to ask everybody a question, what do you think would have been the right course of action for Pyramid Head to make him both powerful yet more fair?
I always had the idea that his slowdown should have been equal to like Huntress holding her hatchet up. Like she's not the same speed, obviously, when she's fully holding it. I thought when his sword was down and lifted it back up, it would have made him really slow. Like maybe for about 2 seconds or something, but not really.
I'm really interested in knowing what everybody else wants to say.
There's actually something I want to mention about Pyramid Head for a while. So Pyramid Head's one of the main reasons they nerfed it, or quote unquote nerfed his like his fake when you go up to a window, is because everyone would be like, oh well, I can't tell. Like he can either fake it and I don't go to the window, or I get M1'd, or I vote the window and he just unleashes it and I get hit anyways. It was always funny to me how demos shred ability is literally the same concept. And so I don't think that's the main problem with Pyramid. I think the main problem with Pyramid is his zoning, personally.
Demo actually had that exact same thing happen to him. Like
Wait,
you
really?
could cancel, yeah, on the PTB, Demo could cancel the shred and immediately attack, and they give it a little bit of a cooldown. So I guess that they just took the same approach. I think maybe a more simple solution would have been if he's having his sword down, give him a shorter launch, like Michael in tier 1. So he cannot, like, if he wants to launch you, he has to be close. He cannot just like do a full lunge out of having the sword in the ground. I think that would have been maybe worth exploring. Because with the current pyramid head, as I said, I don't feel like it encourages you to use your power a lot, like a hunter, just toss, 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 or like a doctor, shock, 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 shock. I feel like the punishment of the dam, maybe it's my personal opinion, but I feel like it should be this big deal. This power that when you use it, if you hit, it feels really good. And if the survivor dodges it, it feels really, really good as well. You know, it should be this thing that you do deliberately. But with the shorter cooldown and with the fact that you don't even need to build it up to use it, like you can spam it. Even if your power, it's not like Spirit. If you use your power with Spirit, you need to wait for it to recharge, right? With this killer, you can just use it even when the power's not fully recovered. So that it kind of just encourages you to just like spray and pray. And I don't know if that's the most fun to play against. I don't know if you guys have gone against a pyramid head that's just going through and just throwing AoEs like it's some kind of like mobile game. I feel like that was a step backwards.
So for me, I feel like, I like the idea of like dodging his attacks before his nerf, because like, he would have a long enough cooldown where you could actually punish it, but yet I always hated zoning. That's the one part to me that annoys me more than anything. Like, you just kind of get zoned out, and now all of a sudden it's less about the player being good at using Pyramid Head and more so how hard they can commit to zoning, pretty much. So for me, it's less about the attacks going out, although admittingly the shorter cooldown does make it a little bit more annoying. It's more about like, when they just commit to zoning. So for me, I feel like if there was some kind of way where they could shift it to be more about, maybe making the actual attack itself a little bit stronger, but then, really hammering down on the zoning, then I feel like that would be the right step forward, because it'd be more about like skillfully landing your shots. Those are just my thoughts.
I think Pyramid Head just needs a complete rework of his power. I mean, his punishments of the dam alone is one thing, but then we have to remember, the cages that he has as well.
Oh, geez, the cages.
Which is the fact that it nullifies mostly all perks that deal with coming off the hook, BT, DS, camaraderie, deliverance. I just think Pyramid Head is a special case where he just needs a complete rework, because for somebody who has experience in Pyramid Head, I don't think there's nothing you can do against them. They have full control, and I think in a chase, there shouldn't be one side that has full control.
Does everybody agree that Pyramid Head basically ignoring killer and survivor perks that are related to hooks is a good or bad thing? Because I honestly kind of like that.
I feel like I know where they're coming from with it, but for me, like, I'm mixed on it, because it means that you get to ignore, like, parts of the game where, like, you cut out synergy with the killer, but then on top of that, you create frustrating scenarios where it's like, you're still being tunneled, because he just goes back to the cage because he memorizes where it's at, and then you don't really have any defenses, you don't have borrowed time, you don't have DS, so you can kind of just be taken out of the game immediately, where it's one of those things where, yeah, if they commit to that, then, you know what, maybe it'll allow everybody a chance to get the gens done, but was it fun for that one survivor to get tunneled out?
I think it depends on how it's used, because the typical Pyramid Head strat is if someone's tormented, you just hook them right away. You tunnel them and then you cage them, and DS is no longer a thing twice. So I think it just depends on how they use it.
So the whole ignoring every single perk thing, I would be totally okay with that if Pyramid Head did not have the ability to just use it, like put down his trails of judgment at will. I mean, we know how fast it recovers. We know that it's always basically available to him all the time, unless you somehow magically use every single, the whole entire thing. So I think it's a good concept, but it's executed poorly because, there's flaws within his power.
Here's one random question. So, Otz, you brought up that you actually like the fact that perks don't work with them, or at least you said you kind of did. So I have one
Uh-huh.
question. Do you think it
Okay.
would actually be better? Because my main issue with perks not working with his cages is the fact that they spawn in a location where you know it's where it's gonna be. They always spawn
Yes.
as far away as
It's
possible.
yeah, and it's the same spawns as Freddy Clock, so you can kind of guess.
Yeah.
The bigger the map with more buildings, the harder. But for the most part, you can guess quite reliably. So that
So
does suck a little bit.
what if it wasn't always just a guaranteed spot of where it was gonna be, and it was like more randomized, where it's not always just
I
the furthest point away?
I don't think that's a huge deal. It doesn't sound like a horrible idea. The problem with that is that you could have this crazy scenarios where you hook a guy, you down someone moderately far away, and now that person appears next to the hook person. Right now, the fact that you will always appear far away from Pyramid Head actually gives the survivors control, right? Because if I see my teammate go down in, I don't know, let's take an example. If I see my teammate go down in one side of Azerops or one side of Suffocation Pit, and I know they're tormented, I can already start running the other direction with a medkit and anticipate where they're going to be. And that's something I do when I play against Pyramid Head. Sometimes I start running in the opposite direction to get them out of there quickly and make sure they're healed very fast. One thing I don't agree with that I think would help more than the is that when you uncage someone, he gets a notification. Why?
Yep. I was just
What's the
about to
point
say
of that?
that.
They
Yeah, I
remove
agree.
they remove the aura, which is like, okay, you don't know where he is. Oops, don't tunnel. Now they give you a notification, which is like, oh well, he's over here. Go tunnel him now.
It's like a little whisper in your ear. It's like, hey, you see that guy? Tunnel him.
Yeah, yeah. He does have DS. Go get him. So maybe they could remove that. Maybe. I wouldn't be opposed to that. That way, you need to pay attention to the HUD, and you don't know exactly where it happens. You need to guess, and there's chances for Iron Will, for stealth, for getting into a locker with head on, for counterplay from the survivors to hide or to run away without you picking up immediately where they might be. So I think that would be a good change, honestly, and I don't think any Pyramid Head would be too bothered. Something that I didn't really think of until now, but that would probably help the health. But yeah, as you were asking earlier, I honestly, for one, I don't know about you guys, I hate when viewers ask, "Oh, so what's a good build on this killer?" And I have to say, "Oh, well, the same as this other killer, and the same as this other killer, and the same as this killer, and the same as every goddamn killer in the roster. It's just ruin and dying, barbecue, AK-47, and this and that and that." And
Yeah.
I like killers that I like the fact that you cannot run, say, the best for last on hunters, and I like the fact that you cannot run some perks on some killers. I like that. I like the fact that perks always don't have good synergies with each other, so that you're forced to pick and have variety. So I like the fact that if I'm playing a survivor without BT, without DS Unbreakable or whatever, that I might have an advantage against the killer that counters those perks.
Which is actually really why I'm excited about the twins, because they're another example of a killer where the same kind of perks will not work on them, and I feel like as if their meta is
Mm-hmm.
going to be based around status effects, and I even think that Dead Man Switch might be interesting because you can be in two
Oh,
places at once.
I never thought of that. You have any more ideas? That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, so so like you put on like Nemesis and Dead Man Switch, and then like you position Victor to be like by a generator that's far away on the opposite side of the map, and you can just kind of control two different areas and switch between them in order to block off the generators. And that's my thoughts. Maybe to keep them away from the gens for longer, you put on like in case they have like any maps or like aura reveal perks, you can put on like Third Seal, because status effects will retain themselves even as Victor. So you put on Third Seal, get everyone blinded, and then you put on like Sloppy to keep them away for longer. So it'd be this idea of like keeping people off of generators, and then them not knowing what's going on, so now they have to stay off the gens.
I mean, I did not try out the PTB, so I can't contribute to this topic since I did not play the twins, but I'm very excited for when it does release, since we know that there are always changes within the PTB that are either been told or shadow buffs, shadow nerfs. So I'm just waiting for for him to release, to play him for once and to see how he does in comp, because that's That's what every new killer, every new killer that comes out.
The
we talk
the
about.
test, yeah, the
Yeah,
fire
like
test.
how he does. Like, it's interesting.
So I do have one question though. So when it comes to the comp scene of the game, do you think having these killers where like, you're forced to run different perks because they don't actually work out the same way as on other killers, do you think that would actually end up being like a good thing for the comp scene to see like killers that
I'm sorry, I'm maybe jumping ahead. I think that's great. I think that's amazing. I know many tournaments that have been decided, or many rounds that I've even played in. I remember the first tournament I played, they thought I was going to play Trapper. So they brought like a map, they brought Dead Hard, they brought this, they brought that. And the fact that, teams can be rewarded or punished for making the right or wrong reads or making the right and wrong guesses, I think that's a good thing. I'm okay with, maybe flashlights being a bit stronger against certain killers or perks being against, and playing around that fact. I think that's healthy for the game, but that's my take.
I know one experience I had definitely with teams making reads is one pretty casual tournament that I wanted to play just for fun. At that time, the entire other team knew that I was a Ghostface main, and I didn't play Ghostface that round. I think I played Billy actually that round. And when I looked at their builds, their entire build, all four of them, was all centered around his hard countering Ghostface. It's the funniest thing ever.
Spine chill.
Yeah, spine chill everywhere.
Yeah, I was the victim of that in VOTB because I assumed Shift W knew my killer was a hag main, so I think there was 2 urbans, and the flashlight person running around trying to find the traps, and it was like, oh, you know what I mean? So I guess I don't know. I guess it kind of depends on the team. Depends on.
That's tough. But if you somehow anticipate that, and now you bring a killer that has nothing to do with that, you would effectively be playing against a survivor with 2 fewer perks or something like that.
Dude, I can't wait
really
for
random question.
Sure.
Do you guys think? Because I was always kind of opposed to maps in tournaments either being random or just pre-selected. Like I know in like Counter-Strike, for example, they veto maps prior to the game, so both teams kind of indirectly agree on the maps they want. Do you think it'd be better if in tournaments they vetoed maps? Like for example, Team X decides to get rid of one Autohaven map, and then Team Y can choose to get rid of one McMillan map or something until it gets narrowed down to maybe 3 maps.
So
No, Go ahead.
So my issue with that is, I like the idea of not wanting to see certain maps, right? That's totally cool. But I think there is actually so many maps that are a problem in this game in the sense that, like, you have quite a few good ones. Like, in my opinion, I really like Cold Tower, even though that's still, a little bit worse due to the breakable walls. And, like, there's a few more dead zones there. But, I like, maps like Cold Tower, Wrecker's Yard. I'm a psycho, so I'm a fan of Temple of Purgation. But, you have, like, maps like that where, you can debate whether or not they're good maps. So then you have, like, a bunch of them where it's, like, they're either super unfun or they're just straight up bad. So, like, Azrov's is just unfun. Then you have Orman, which is too good for survivors. Then you have Hawkins, which is just, super unfun and bad. You have, like, Larry's, which, kind of nukes everybody's FPS. And, you have things like that where there's a lot of maps that create a problem. So, like, you'd really, if it came down to anything, I feel like you would have to do a map preference where it's like, oh, you know what, I want to see this map, and the other team mentions the map that they want to see. And I feel like that would be better.
Shouldn't it come down to the tournament rules to determine, hey, this maps are so bad, we're banning them? Should this be on top of that, or maybe as a complementary rule? Because I didn't quite.
I think what would have to happen is like the tournament hosts would just come down to deciding, like, obviously the really crazy outlier maps are removed right away, and they like hand select all the really like quote unquote fair maps, and then from there that's when you narrow it down, I think.
Yeah,
I think the strats would change severely if like you knew your team really wanted, for example, Cold Tower, but their team has a really good Hunters player, so they're going to want like an Autohaven. So maybe you can work around that. Like there's more strategic things to picking maps than just oh, we're both on Sanctum. What do we do,
Yeah, I would actually like that a lot. So, you can kind of like pick the map that you're going for, and they can like have like their preferences veto the ones that they really don't want. So I guess if it was that way, where like you paired up the 2 systems together, then that would be perfect. Yeah.
I mean, that just dives in more into the complexity of the game, you know. So I think the most complex, well, not the most complex, but one of many great examples of complexity in DBD is DBD League. It's a league where most of the known competitive teams play. They actually do a pick and ban system. They don't do it. They don't do a map veto system, but essentially how it works is they give you a map, and then they're gonna ask. They do a coin flip. They're gonna ask whoever wins the coin flip where they want this killer banned, or you know, and then the other team picks another killer to ban, or just, and then it can also come down to perks as well. If one team wants to first instead ban a perk straight up, and then you know you can just go from there. So at the end of the day, it's something that I want to see happen: map vetoes and perk bans more often, because it does get a little bit stale when you know every team is going to be running 2 addies, 2 BTs, 2 DSs, 2 exhaustions. So, but I think somebody has to take that leap into making the game more complex, which you know brings up another such a scenario. It's like, as much as you want the game to be complex, you want it to be also simple for, you know, followers, viewers to understand. But it would be interesting to see
I think that's
how.
quite important. I think some of the best
Yeah.
tournaments are the ones where you see what's going on with one quick glance, and you don't need to understand that this is the semi-quarterfinals of the semi-final quarters, and they're 3.5 points up. But if he gets a chest that
Yeah.
has a brown toolbox, now they win. It's like, what?
Yeah.
What? What's happening? This guy's getting 5 kills. Why is he not winning? You know, it's like those things. I think are simple.
But I mean, there are tournaments, like I said, that dive into deeper into DBD, making it as less RNG as possible. You know, having only one perk available to the whole entire team. You know,
Yeah.
one Iron Will, one DS. But it'd be fun if somebody is. I mean, I think it would just be stale map vetoing. I mean,
No, I agree, but I think
'Cause-
perk
'cause
bans,
at
you
the-
have to be careful.
because at the same time, like, oh, like, you know, let's say you get 5 choices, you ban 3 of them, and then you're gonna end up playing the same killer, and you know, maybe you play a different killer on this map and or that map. But I think map veto, the reason why it hasn't been touched is because I don't think it matters that much at the end of the day. I think perks and killer bans are more important, and then maybe you can do map veto. I think that would be very interesting. But
Well, would you say that then, if you were to ban perks, that certain things can be protected from being banned, like essentials? Like, I can imagine if everyone banned corrupt or everyone banned BT, it would be a nightmare, actual nightmare. I think.
yeah, like I said, that's where the complexity of DBD or comp DBD has to. somebody has to take the leap, right? Like somebody has to figure out, because and that goes back to the whole tournament, you know, relearning after each other, from BP to hooks to hook stages. I think somebody has to eventually make that insane, chaotic, crazy leap. Oh, let's just make, you know, just have no BTs or have no DS whatsoever, or just don't have spirits or don't play this map ever, and it'd be very interesting. But
I mean,
think
there is a tournament like that. The under the radar automatically bans DS, and then killers get to ban, I think, 2 perks, and survivors get to ban 1, and then you can veto a map. So I mean, in a sense, that they've already done it.
Yeah, I think tournaments need to look after each other, because I mean, we are a community after all, and we only learn from each other.
Exactly, and that's why, you know, I think having these conversations is very good, because, you know, even if we can't solve every problem with the game, I think ultimately it allows there to be, like, you know, a conversation to start from. Like, you know, I feel like, you know, by having these kind of conversations, people kind of look back at it and realize, hey, you know what, maybe there is actually more to cover in this game than we originally thought, and there's an easy way of doing so as well.
Would you guys have, like, if you were to start your own tournament, or a close friend of yours was to start their own tournament, what would your advice be? What would be the mistake that you would tell them maybe to avoid? I'm curious about what everybody thinks about that.
That's a great question, actually.
What's maybe one thing you can't stand about a tournament rule, or something that you would do?
Well, I think I would never, like, as great as the G Field tournament was, and I loved it, and I loved participating in it. I don't think punishing killers for bringing add-ons was a good thing. I don't think it's ever good
how,
to.
how did that work? If you don't mind, because I don't.
Yeah,
think
so
I
essentially,
saw
I think
that.
if you brought in, I think what was it, -2 points per add-on brought, I think.
Yeah, that
What?
was recently in G Fuel.
Yeah, like
And
in that sense, like why would
That's,
anyone pick a like a medium tier killer or something when they
That's
know they're
add-on
gonna lose
dependent,
points for
of
add-ons?
course.
Yeah, like you like for example, yeah, I played with Vampire Tooth in that tournament, and he brought in 2 add-ons on Heg, and obviously we lost 4 points because of that. But their Pyramid Head brought no add-ons, and he was rewarded for that. But I don't like that system because it's just it limits so much. Like if you pick
Yeah,
this character
yeah,
and you know
I
you need
don't.
add-ons, you're going to lose.
And
I
what
don't
had
so far
happened
that's good.
actually is that I had actually gotten like a bunch of hooks in that game as well, right? Like I think I had like everybody, what was it, like 8 hooks, right?
Yeah, I think you had like 8 or 9 hooks.
Yeah, it was something around that number, and then like the Pyramid Head got 4, but because like even though he didn't get as many hooks, he didn't bring any add-ons, so he won because of
So
that.
that made a difference.
Yeah.
That feels,
it was the winner. Yeah.
that feels kind of bad, doesn't it?
I feel like it
It
kind of
really
just
does.
promotes like stale gameplay. Like you're just gonna kind of
Yeah,
like,
just
rule
pick
out.
just pick the 2-3 killers that don't
Yeah,
require
just-
add-ons, and
Just play
forget
the
about
top
the
3
rest.
killers, and if you play the other
That
ones,
is
well,
that is a really good response
you
to
lose.
that question. I wonder if you guys have seen any other bad practices in tournaments.
Yeah, there's one thing that actually when I was on a certain team with someone, the tournament we were going to go into, I forget what it was called, but pretty much they went with this really structured way to run the tournament, and
Okay.
there was no choice. There was you could only have like
What?
one of every perk, like the entire team, not just one per person.
What?
That's that's kind of common. I know a lot of the NA folks are not really accustomed to this because we're on the other side of the world, but that's pretty much how they do it over in the Russian tournaments, which are widely regarded to be the the most competitive tournaments in the entire scene. Usually the survivors they're given 1 perk each for the team, and the killers are very structured and what add-ons are allowed to bring and what they have to play and what maps are being played. I think a lot of those tournaments actually ironically have more balance than say the G Fuel tournament or other tournaments that we see on a frequent basis in the NA scene, because there's just way more structure, and you kind of know what's at hand, and the teams can prepare accordingly to that.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I feel like, another thing I would try to avoid is, I feel like there are some maps that are not like looked into enough. So like for instance, I know that in BOTB there was actually some maps where like they did remove some of the outlier maps such as Ormond and Haddonfield, all that, which is great, but they left in some other maps that can be really RNG dependent. So for instance, the swamp maps. And as we all know and love, for like when it comes to swamp, everything spawns in the corners of the map. So hooks, totems, etc.
Yeah.
And then
can I cut you in for this?
Sure.
I remember this time when I was playing with Hag and Swamp in the best of the best, and I noticed that because of the horrible RNG, I couldn't hook someone, and I'm like, okay, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do this? I cannot drop this guy. I'm gonna lose if I drop this guy. I just let him struggle out.
Too, I think.
Yeah, I let him struggle out, and because of the bug, I caught him 2 seconds after. And thus I brought him to another hook. But if it wasn't for that bug, I probably would have lost that encounter like immediately.
And the other thing is that like it's just you couldn't slug him either because if he bled out, you wouldn't get points to that either. So the thing about swamp is that there's even pallets that spawn the direct corner of the map, like like that one boat pallet between like the boat and the tree, right? And it spawns at one corner of the map, so it's completely out of the way. Hardly anybody knows it's there, but it usually spawns in, and so you have that one resource which is taking up 1 out of the 8 pallets that can spawn in at minimum, and then the middle could either be loaded or it could be completely dead with nothing there. So you had swamp, which could be so wild as far as RNG goes, where you really are playing on a different map throughout 2 different matches because there's just no way you can get the same Pale Rose or the same Grim Pantry. It's literally impossible due to how random it is. And then you have the piers as well, where at least on Dead Dog Saloon, for instance, what maze tiles are going to spawn in. They're just going to spawn in different positions, and then that's it. Maybe there's one different maze tile spawn, and that's literally it. But swamp, everything could be so random about it. And so I feel like, you really gotta be careful about the maps that are just, worlds apart between two different games. And because there is no map seeding, that's very hard to do, but there are some maps where I feel like they're closer in the outcome of what you're gonna get than on other maps. So like that would be the comparison of, let's say, Coal Tower or Ironworks versus Grim Pantry and Pale Rose.
Yeah. No, I mean, those are all good points. I think at the end of the day, the important choice for the tournament organizers are the choice is that they need to decide whether they want to be a tournament that promotes, diversity and, more of a fun aspect versus the hardcore competitive aspect, right? Because even though some people might think maps like Leary's or Hawkins are completely unbalanced, and to a degree they kind of are, but there are tournaments out there that are widely considered as very competitive, and they'll have stages in the tournaments where it'll be a ghost face on Leary's round. But teams, they know what's coming, they prepare accordingly, and Survivor teams often will do well against those killers. I just think it's important that the organizers kind of understand what kind of direction they want to promote and kind of grow their tournament scene as.
And sometimes even if a map is kind of unbalanced to one side, if both sides play it, that by definition should balance it out, right? As long as it's not super RNG fest.
Yeah, it's like you can have a rough map.
Yeah, exactly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're both going through the same struggle now.
Mm-hmm.
They may not pick the same killer, which that's okay. That means that they were thinking about it in advance, but I think having tough maps is fine. There just shouldn't be maps that are wildly different if, like, you play the same map, but there's two totally different results. Because then that's just not fair.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Like with Ormond, that's going to consistently be really bad for Killer, whereas with Hawkins, that's consistently really bad for Survivor. So, like, they're going through the same struggle no matter what.
Yeah, the only thing Hawkins ever promoted, I guess, was less Nurse, because everyone knows Hawkins is a ass map for Nurse, so it's something, I guess, but it's not ideal still in my mind. I don't know.
Meanwhile, you have maps like Swamp that is just Russian roulette. It's like, alright, what are you going to get? I guess you're going to get the map that has literally nothing, or, you know what, you have like the 5 god windows and that's it.
Okay,
And that's just Swamp.
I actually want everyone's opinion on this. Mainly, I mean, I don't know if this is because I play Killer, but what is your thoughts on locking the Killer role to one player only?
I think it's a bad thing.
You think it's a bad thing?
Yes, because in my opinion, what makes teams very, very strong is them having multiple players that exceed at certain killers. Like, for example, having Jordy Rex on your team, knowing he's a God Huntress and putting him in a position with a given map or team to succeed on that helps your team drastically. Like, we'll say, for example, Disco, like you're a dedicated nurse man, and then your team could have like a dedicated Billy man or something. Your chances of being put into a good spot is drastically so much higher than forcing you individually to play everything.
Well, here's
I mean, everything cool, but
I mean, I agree to that to like an extent, but also if that were the case where you would lock it to only one person, it would kind of show.
It would
like,
showcase the skill of that player.
Yeah, like for example, like with Otz and BOTB, or I know Disco plays a variety of different killers. Like that shows that they have skill on multiple different killers and that they're like consistently like
but
a top
that's
killer.
That's a bit different, right? Like because BOTB made sure, I think maybe all of us here know, but it's worth recalling that you cannot play the same killer back to back to back to back to back. So yeah, it's true that it's really cool when you pick a killer you don't expect, but the very rules are encouraging you to do that, because if you play Nurse, no more Nurse, and if you play Spirit, no more Spirit for that round until the next one. So I think that might be more important than just locking to one killer player, because if you lock to one killer player, that does make some teams that could be very solid kind of lacking, and it maybe stifles competition. Maybe it doesn't really help. But encouraging multiple killers, I think that's great.
I think, in my opinion, part of like getting better at the game is understanding how multiple different how multiple different killers are played, and so there aren't many killers with a super high skill cap, but like you do have a few of them. Like you have like Blight, you have Nurse. People argue for Huntress as well for having a high skill cap, and then you have Billy if you go for like curves. So part of getting better at the game is understanding how to play multiple killers really well and really effectively. But with that being said, I also don't really think it's that big of a deal to where I think it should really be up to the tournament holders whether or not they would like that to happen, because no matter what, it's not a big deal. Like, if you know the person, you know they're up for it, then why wouldn't you go for that? But I think it should really be down to the tournament, because not everybody's going to have that much access to a variety of players.
I mean, you're just at that same time, it's like, if you have let's say a one-trick nurse main, and then you lock out the tournament, by default, most of these tournaments, some tournaments differ, but by default, most of the time, you can see in tournaments that are happening now, you're not allowed to play nurse or spirit round one. You have to play a different killer, and I think having a variety of players is good, but at the same time, like, just relying on that one person to play that one killer for that one round, I don't think that's that person might have invested so many hours into that one killer only, but like at the same time, it's like, it's very cheeky. You have a one-trick nurse main on your roster, you have a one-trick spirit main on your roster, and then what happens when you get locked out? Who's going to play? Your team becomes, in shambles after that. And I think having that one solid killer, or that can play any killer that's given to him, is as important as or better than having just that one Huntress main on your team that's only plays Huntress 24/7. And I that's just my opinion.
I think that should be something that's left to the team's decision, though.
Yeah.
Something that should be forced upon them.
I feel like
think
it's
if
kind
a
of like a
team-
preference.
Yeah, if a team wants to have a good nurse player, they want to have a good spirit player, they want to have a good Huntress player, whatever it may be, let them do that, right? And if they don't have something, where if they run into a situation like that where they can fill in for whatever role they're missing, then that's kind of their own fault, right? But if they choose to have a killer that's good at a lot of things, then they also have that as well. So I think that's just kind of something that teams have to be mindful of, and when they're building their team, they have to take into consideration. But I don't think rules that force people to play certain killers that they are not really accustomed to are necessarily the greatest things. So I know in BOTB it was one killer locked in. It's the killer role. You can have one sub if something happens, but they have to play every single killer every single round, right? A lot of people disagreed with that. A lot of people said that's actually better. I personally think it's usually better, from my experience, when you let multiple players play whatever it may be in the tournament that's going on.
Well, do you think the one killer perk per round comes down to viewership, though, so people don't get bored of only seeing nurse? That's why I always thought it was a thing.
My understanding was, at least for the BOTB tournament, that they wanted to build a narrative around the killer role, which is why they wanted one player for that role the entire time. They didn't want to have people jumping in and out.
Yeah, I believe that was a bit the intended outcome. They probably wanted to foster some variety, which I think lends itself to a good show, by the way. You can have three amazing, like jaw-dropping, absolutely perfectly executed, or three, or I'm saying three, but it could be 5 or 6 nurse spirit games. But by the 5th or 6th, people are starting to go, Resident Sleeper. Even if it's the most amazing nurse game you've ever seen in your life, and the survivors are doing everything right, and the killer's making every right turn, and it's, on the edge of your seat kind of game. People want to go into a game and be like, oh my god, why is this perk here? Wow, why did he pick this killer? Oh my god, they want to see a bit of the show. So I can see how encouraging the killers to be swapped was probably a good idea for that purpose.
Yeah. And that's like going back to my point. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's up to the tournament organizers. Do they want their tournament to be geared around promoting diversity, to promote entertainment, or do they want it to be ultra super competitive with
What are
strict
your
rule
What are your
sets?
favorites, Jay?
I've played in both, or my team has played in both, and honestly, I like the super ultra competitive rule set more. I think the level of gameplay that is promoted in there, it oftentimes kind of trumps what we see in the more frequent NA tournaments, at least the ones that I've been involved in. But I understand that the NA scene is a little bit different from the EU or the Russian scene, where they enjoy the diversity, they enjoy seeing different killers, and that's a matter of personal preference, right? It's not like you can say this one's better than the other. It's just something that one culture might be accustomed to more than the other.
Yeah, I can see that. So I guess.
What kind of
Oh, sorry.
What kind of Yeah, no, I wonder what kind of tournament everyone would host if you were given the chance. Because I feel like a lot of people point fingers and are like, this tournament is busted, this tournament is silly, these rules are stupid. But if you are tasked to making your own one, you realize just how difficult it is to strike a balance. So my major props, I think, to anybody that organizes things like this, because they're very fun to watch. If you have a chance, they're very fun to participate. I think they help the community, and it's not an easy task.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's
Absolutely.
first and foremost. Regardless of the
sure.
rule sets and regardless of what you think about it, if you have any sort of involvement, or you've ever been a part of any sort of competitive event, it's always important that you show appreciation to whoever's putting on these events. I mean, people they dedicate their time and effort to putting these on, and whether you like a certain rule or not, I mean, the fact that they're even taking the time to put these on is very, very helpful for the people who are interested in it. Because at the end of the day, we're all doing this for fun. This isn't like life and death for us, and we should at least be grateful that they're taking the time to do that.
Yeah, like I remember back then, and you used to quote unquote train or scrim or play together for months, and then you would never have a DVD tournament. It would be like a once in a blue moon, and then everybody just hops on that. But nowadays, like you have a tournament literally every other week, and it's just a huge change. To the tournaments, people are more invested. People want to put in more time, want to see more content, and I think we have to thank everybody that is behind the whole planning staff. Like I said, what Jay said, whatever you do for a tournament, they have to be appreciated, no matter what what happens. And I think that gets overlooked a lot.
So
Actually, oh, sorry, go on.
no, you go first.
I was gonna say like a really random question. So, I think one of the biggest drawbacks for comp to me, especially recently, is like ping difference sometimes is very, very drastically unfair. So, do you think that some tournaments should be more limited to their own region, or do you think just the cross-region thing is always going to be like perfect? I guess until they invent the server-side hits that are flawless. What is your take on that? I guess.
So my take on this is that it depends on the kind of tournament. Like, if it's more competitive where you want to showcase the very best players, well, you're not going to really be able to do that with the huge ping discrepancy. And I think for that, it should be closer to region-based tournaments. However, if you're looking for, like, just fun, like, experienced players versus experienced players, it's not really a big deal, and it's just overall there to be a fun time, then I think you can have it be across multiple regions, but it really depends on how serious you want it to be, because nobody's gonna really look at someone getting hit like 5 seconds after a vault as being something very serious.
Yeah, so to add on to that, the players I have on my roster right now, I think one of the biggest turnoffs for them was the ping issue. But once, I showed them that, oh, it's not really that bad. I know this is something that it's a minor thing to get over with. It's a hump that you have to get over with. And once they started playing, once they started accumulating or adapting to the ping, they're like, oh, this isn't bad. And now, I have players on my roster who said they would never ever do comp ever in their life, and now, they're playing, they want to scrim all the time, and it's just I think the ping issue it's a hump that people need to get over with. It's not something that you'll ever it will never disappear, because ever since the change to dedicated, or even before then, it was just It's just something you have to accept when you take the responsibility of becoming or playing competitive in DBD.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially for the NA scene, that, in my opinion, is a little bit behind the EU and Russian scene. It's important that we kind of disregard ping. I know it's frustrating to have in the game, but it's important that if you want to progress the the talent level and what is kind of put on in these tournaments, it's important that you kind of just put that to the side and find ways to adapt to it. I mean, I am in the unique spot. I think I might be the only person in the entire competitive scene that's an NA player who plays for an EU team. I practice with and against EU and Russian players literally almost every day, and it's just something that you get accustomed to over time when you have enough practice.
What I want to see more is it's hard, and it comes down to the ping issue, is a mixture of players. I mean, as of right now, I would ask, oh, what is the region of this team I'm playing against, and it'd just be EU, Russian, NA. There's no mix of Russian players and European players, or European players and North American. It's always just this team is this region, and that's the that's
I was actually the
that's
opposite.
the tone.
I was a European killer for an American team.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it worked out. It's just something that people have to get over with and just deal with.
It was really rough on them to practice, but I think I can resonate with that sentiment, that it's very frustrating at first. You get used to it, and it's okay after.
Yeah, it's completely fine.
It actually
you're talking
over
about
time.
your VOTB team, right?
But excuse me.
The team is saying you're the European killer for an American team. Use the VOTB team.
Yeah, it's not like we had any history or anything. These people knew each other a little bit, but it was a team that had some issues. Like, some of the people that were going to come in couldn't make it, so it was a team very hastily put together with, very little, if any, comp experience, and it was all. I don't want to be wrong here, but mostly West US and me, so we had like a 7 or 8 hour difference. And for the BOTB, I skip some streams. I definitely skip a lot of video making and stuff, and I would be up until 6 a.m. practicing with them because
that's one of the only downsides of having a mixed team.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're truly that dedicated to getting better, to practicing with the best players and playing against the best players,
I'm grateful that they were dedicated too, because the first time I hit them through a window, if they had been like, oh, okay, that's BS, I'm quitting. Then
that's the thing
really
though.
Experience, so
that's the
I'm
thing
glad
though,
that
right?
they had that attitude too.
Like,
sorry,
from a survivor role though, that's the thing. Like, if you're playing on high ping, it teaches you to play safer, right? Like, and in comp, the number one thing is don't be a hero. Don't play super risky. You need to play safe enough to get your team enough time to do the gens and get out, right?
I think my team didn't catch on to that one, but
I mean, it worked out for you guys anyways. But that's the thing though. Like, if you're playing on this high ping, over time you get used to it. Like we were saying, you get adjusted to it, and if you're playing safer, over time, if you end up going and you're facing against a killer from your own region, oftentimes you'll find that you'll end up doing even better against them because you don't even have those latency issues. You're naturally playing safer, and ultimately it kind of works out in your favor.
So pretty much you end up demolishing them because of the fact that now you know for sure that you're safe.
Yeah.
Or you can go for that extra to waste a little bit more time.
It's like running. You ever heard of running at a different elevation? Like, some athletes or some runners were trained at different elevations because it's harder to get a rhythmic breathing pattern at that elevation compared to, for example, ground level. I mean, you hear it all the time. It's kind of the same concept, but it's not as extreme.
Yeah, boxers do it all the time.
Yeah, so just the little things.
So do you think, even the very serious tournaments can be taking place across multiple different regions then, considering that?
Absolutely. So long as the connection does not clearly compromise the integrity of the tournament, I think it's completely fine. If a killer is hitting a survivor from 20 feet away and it's blatantly clear they should not have gotten that hit, right? Then I mean, I think we can all agree that that's a little scuffed. if a killer hits someone through a pallet and maybe it's a little bit laggy, I mean, that's just part of that. I mean, that happens on normal ping, right?
And it will also happen to the killer of that team in the next round.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Like at least theoretically, right?
yeah. So I mean, it's kind of one of those judgment calls where maybe there has to be some testing. I know there was testing pre the BOTB tournament to make sure that killer's connections were stable enough to play. But as long as it's generally acceptable, I think there's no issue with it. Teams just have to be mindful of that and prepared for that, and they need to be receptive of it.
So I guess in that case, it'd be more reasonable as long as you're actually prepared for it. Now, I do have one question which will kind of like track away from this a little bit. So, a lot of people kind of look at the competitive scene as, oh, why would they ever do that? DBD cannot possibly be balanced. And what is one thing that you would like to tell those kind of players where, like, what would you want them to think of instead of it just being, hey, it's super ultra competitive?
I would tell them to try it. I mean, I know there's a lot of players, like I said, who I've never thought would ever try or be into competitive DBD. A lot of North American players that I know. I'm not gonna drop any names, obviously, because there's way too many of them. Like there's so many. There's a rise of NA teams right now because people are trying competitive. Then they're seeing, oh, it's not that bad. It's actually fun, and this is something we can strive to get better at. But I think I see why at first glance, comp DBD is a joke because it really makes no sense. Like why would you ever try to balance a game that is not even balanced? But I think they need to at least give it a shot before they bash it. I mean, you have heard of the saying,
don't knock it till you try it.
Don't knock it till you try it, or just don't have an opinion before you like try it. Because I know there's a lot of players out there that love it.
I think there's a lot of people also that are guilty of being like dismissing it immediately, And
Yeah.
I wish more people would have that attitude.
I was
Really,
guilty
it's kind
of it
just
until
the
I tried
notion
it.
of it being a casual game.
Yeah. Just give it a shot. I think there's a lot of teams that are probably looking to scrim any decent killer. So if you fancy yourself a decent killer, or the other way around, go find someone to scrim with to set up a little, mock game. It will open your eyes to many things. If you ever complain about public matches being unpleasant, wait until you find a team that can hide for 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
It will make you, your hair fall off your head.
I call that my average swamp experience.
Yeah.
It's funny that those same people who say, "Oh, DBD can't be competitive with a casual game," are like the same people who are supporting the rise in like Minecraft tournaments. I
Wait,
find that hilarious.
there's
Like, any
Minecraft
game can go
tournaments?
yeah, there is. Yeah, ever since like Dream got super popular, it's been Minecraft tournaments.
I mean, yeah, like you said, any game can go competitive. It's just about what the community does with it, and this is what the community is with it and turned it into. And just because it was brought up as a casual game doesn't mean it has to always stay that way if the community kind of drives it towards a little bit of a different direction. And I think that's like a perfect example of what happened with DBD. Is it just kind of went in that direction for like a niche community, and then boom, here we are talking about it.
And the one thing, go ahead.
But you can go.
The one, I think that's kind of our fault as well. Because at the end of the day, it's like, I just try it. Like, where? And I think, I came from, like I said, multiple competitive scenes. I mean, CSGO, obviously, you have pug networks. I came from a game called Left 4 Dead 2 that had a competitive scene. They also had a pug network. But then when I look at DBD, it's like, where's our network? It's just, oh, you're either on a team or you're not. Or you have to make your own team and then you go against the other team. And which is, and that's something I've been working on in the back. I'm kind of setting up something right now, which is very similar to a pug network where, anybody, maybe not everybody, but
I mean, to be fair, when I first started looking into comp, I'm pretty sure I messaged Jay and I was like, dude, where do I even start to look? Like, I don't even know like where to go, what to do. And then you just kind of put me in the direction.
Yeah, I had that problem as well in the beginning.
Yeah, and then I met Disco and he was like, you do this, that, boom, I'm on your team. I was like, what?
Yeah,
so I mean, it's understandable. I feel like it definitely needs somewhere like a place for everyone to go to be able to try it. Because even back in Fortnite, we had like 2 main scrim discords that everybody would be able to join, and they were public, and that's how you got in.
Right, and like I said, the Pug Network is great because it's an environment where it's not so serious, but it's not so casual either. It's like any hot shot killer wants to give a shot at four quote unquote even like not even comp survivors, maybe like four survivors who are just Swifts. They want to try that out, and then they can just go against each other. And I think that's something that this community is missing. It's something I'm working on, and it's the project is still very early in stages, but like I said, that's something I'm working on and something I'm excited to bring to the community when it eventually finishes. But any help would be appreciated, obviously.
Which, by the way, if you're a lot, like, I'll actually let you a moment to actually explain your project a little bit, because I know you were talking about that a little bit on Twitter, and seeing where this is a podcast about the comp scene of the game, give it a shot.
I mean, so the whole concept of a pug, a pickup game, it's an acronym, is just for players who don't want to or don't already have established teams, right? Like if you're not already on the team, you're looking for more competitive quote unquote games than casual. If casual is too boring, but you don't want to like get four other people and scrim a well-established team, you can get into a network or a system where you can just ask for, let's say, I want a pickup game, and then other players will respond to it, and then they will form their own little group, hop in your own killer friends, and then just go from there. And just it's something that I think this community is missing. It definitely helped grow the community, and as you can see, why it's place for new players to start. It's place for veterans to relax, where they don't want to always constantly be at performing in scrims at high levels. And I think it's just a great way for the community to bond and grow.
Just going back to your original question, regarding what I would say to people who kind of look down upon the competitive scene is, at the end of the day, we are all doing this because it's something that we enjoy and it's something that we can do with our friends. This isn't something that we're, saying is, we are the best in the world because, we're the best team in Dead by Daylight, right? Like there's some egos in the comp scene, and, sometimes they get a little out of hand, but at the end of the day, we're all doing this because we like playing with our friends in a game that we all enjoy and put thousands of hours into, right? If you're not involved in the comp scene, I think it's important, even if you disagree with everything about the comp scene, just there's no reason to bash it, right? Let people do whatever they want. Let them, if they're not doing anything to, that's harming you or hurting anyone else, then what's the problem, right? I think the DBD community as a whole and in general is very quick to judge, which, maybe they'll never change, and that's just something we have to deal with. But I don't think there's anything wrong with people doing things that they enjoy with their friends, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, just spreading negativity as well is, just some people are always negative, want to spread negativity, and it's just like, if it doesn't hurt you, why does it matter?
And the one thing I actually realized is that, when I had actually first gotten into BOTB, I never realized just how many people I recognized in there. Like, I would just look at some teams, I would notice instant dodge because, for me, I've gone up against them a couple of times myself in the past. Like, Disco, I think I went against you once on, what was it? Groaning Storehouse?
I've played too many matches against too many players to keep track of games, but I'm sure we've gone against each other.
Yeah,
But
like, I remember it was like Groaning Storehouse, and I remember that one because you had like one teammate that just didn't do anything. They just kind of like sat there and just AFK'd essentially. But there was that. Oh, what was that?
There's also the opposite, where now you're playing normal pub games and you're all chilling, and suddenly you see two names that you saw in a tournament. You're like, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I might just put in some add-ons real quick.
Yep, I see that a lot. There's a lot of times where I'll see, maybe it's me, maybe it's some of my friends or just people I'm watching. They go, "Oh, that's so and so. You played in this event, right? I saw you on that stream, right?" Like, oh, time to make their games unfun. Like, just like why? Like, people do stuff that isn't always just playing normal everyday matches that everyone plays, and I don't think there's any reason for there to be negative. There's no reason for there to be any negativity in this entire community regarding that. Let that come up in other places. It shouldn't be just because some people like playing something that others don't, that, you know, people should get all upset about it.
Without a doubt,
Yeah.
like the one thing I had realized just, just how many people I recognize, like, as I mentioned before, I recognize Instant Dodge. I recognize some of the members of Shift W. I obviously recognize Otz. There was like some other people who I recognized as individuals, but not necessarily their team. So, for instance, I recognized Aaron, but I didn't necessarily know everybody on his team though. But I would actually I actually noticed a few other people on Team Azure. I think it was. I recognized like Hannah, and then there was like one other person there. I think it was Hunky, if I'm not mistaken. But I've recognized like a bunch of names there, and it's just it was really cool because like although it was like a massive amount of pressure to realize how many people were watching you, it was still really cool to know just the amount of people that you could recognize just by looking at like who's participating.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back like, everybody, BOTB was one of the biggest tournaments that ever happened in Dead by Daylight. And some players will get recognized just because they participated. And I think that's helpful in the sense that, the community grows together. You recognize other players who've put in a lot of hours into the game or who are good, or just recognize players just to recognize players. That's being a part of a community, that you want to be in. I mean, I want to, as much as I want to know everybody personally, there's not just not enough time for that. But growing as a community, being positive and staying together, is just a positive from the DBD comp scene.
I mean, like a perfect example of that is I ran into Vampire Toothy in a pub when he was playing Slinger, and I noticed his name because I watched all of BOTB, and now we're friends.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
literally just off of me watching BOTB and then me getting him in a pub, stopping by his stream, like we became friends off of literally just that, me knowing who he was alone, just from a tournament.
And that's just another positive influence it can have. While it has the power to make some matches more fun because like they'll recognize your name and then they'll put on like certain add-ons and whatnot. It also has the potential where that recognition can lead to like connections in the future where
Right.
you can have good conversations with people and whatnot. You could recognize them, maybe scratch their back and burn like a Blade Party stream or whatever, like whatever it
absolutely.
is.
Yeah, I've
Maybe
had
you're gonna
a
get
good
a
amount of reverse.
sponsorship for coming first place.
Yeah, like I've had like when I've been solo queuing and stuff, I've had some people on my team like recognize me from tournaments and like actually try harder to win because like I don't like I guess because they were inspired by it or something, but I've seen a lot of good come
Yeah.
out of it. It's not always
mean,
the sweaty I see you, you must die.
When I was on Miracle 4K for that little bit, I had some guy who was streaming. I was just playing a pub and I was streaming, just chilling. And he recognized the tag in my name because he knows who the team was. And he was like, "Oh my God, I'm playing against a Miracle member. Like, I got to try." He's like, "I just want to chase him." I was like he didn't play like a scum or anything. He just played fair. He played fun. He just wanted a challenge. But it's just funny how all of that works just off of being in a comp scene like this.
Yeah. Oh, I thought this was funny. A friend of mine showed me a screenshot like yesterday or the day before. And it's like a comp team that I played against some weeks ago. And all of them in their profile have, "We are this competitive team. We're the ones that ended Otzdarva's win streak on this killer." And there's a link. And I'm like, "Oh my God. Should I feel? Should I feel?
It's so tight.
How should I feel about this?" I thought that was so funny. I was like, "Damn, dude."
Oh, that's great. So I do have one question for everybody. So Zeno had actually asked a question in the chat earlier, and I think I'm gonna rephrase it a little bit because I think it can actually open up a really nice conversation. So there was all a point in time where we were new to the game, and my question here is there anybody in your region that you looked up to that inspired you to become a better player?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
100%. Yep.
I mean, the reason why I made Nia is due to some content creators, but I guess I won't say I'm a sheep in that sense, but yeah, it kind of did.
I can say the same, but it wasn't just one person. I actually reached out to so many people that I knew had something to teach me. Like to play hack, I would bother Mickey and he would coach me. A friend from France named Val, who's a really good wraith. I picked his brain apart for weeks. and I tried to like squeeze people like sponges and try to get as much info out of them. And I think that's one of the best things about this game. No matter how good you think you are at one thing, there's going to be someone, probably Russian, who's better at you than it. And you can, I was only joking, but who's probably better than you, and you can learn from them, and maybe you can teach them a thing in the process, and that is such a fun thing to do.
I feel
It's
like for
always
me,
so
like
healthy.
there's a bunch of different people that I could pick out and choose that did different things for me in a different way. Like it's just all like the person who got me into the game first of all alpha watching would probably be like Noob 3, and then from there
Yeah, me
it kind
too.
of just like
I think
leveled
he
up, and
brought
then
most of us into the game.
yeah, and then like to get better when I was like really trying to just be good at the game and I wasn't even like focusing on content or anything, I started watching people like Aaron and all those guys. And then it just kind of evolved into when I got in the comp scene, learning from Disco and all the guys that I ended up meeting. And it just, I feel like there's too many names to put out there that like could do that for someone, you know?
For me, when I had first gotten into the game, I was actually introduced by a friend, and so for a while they wanted me to play Survivor with them, but eventually I found my way into the killer role, and I felt really lost at the beginning. So for me, I actually remember that one of the first content creators I watched was actually Scott, because he was known to be a very good killer at the time, and he still is, but like he was like really good at Huntress, and so I actually looked at his YouTube channel and his streams in order to actually learn like the different mining games you can do to get a better grasp of the mechanics. And then from there, I remember like back when Umbra was like really new in the Twitch scene, I would actually watch her because she was also a really good killer. And then Ots, you actually inspired me to actually make unique builds myself, where like instead of running like the meta, I remember you had like like these wacky builds like the Ninja Clown build and whatnot. And so
And to be completely fair, how these stupid builds are like 3 or 4 of my viewers who are like these evil geniuses who will send me I'll wake up to a DM that's like 5 paragraphs long, and it will be like, okay, so this is why you need to try this. And it's so funny. I find a lot of inspiration from other people though. But if I can bring that to a different audience, I'm so happy doing that. Like at the end of the day, like the reason we play comp is to squeeze more fun out of this game, right?
exactly.
And that's what especially as creators, that's what you should be doing. You don't want to, as a creator, I feel like you shouldn't, your goal shouldn't be to get everybody upset and like make them miserable playing the game and make them realize just how bad everything is. And maybe if that's how you feel, maybe you should play a game that makes you feel better instead of just bringing negative emotions. So it's such a joy to have the chance to do that.
And the one thing that actually really pushed me to want to become a better player is, I remember the first time I ever went against instant dodge. I was playing Oni back when his flick was bugged, and it was on Blood Lodge. So,
Ouch.
it was back when his flick was basically non-existent, and I got my shit kicked in, but I just started thinking, it was like, well, I lost this one really hard, but I started thinking, how can I actually get better at the game? Because at first it was like, you know what, that was a really annoying match, but I started looking at it more, and I started picking together, like, a build where I was like, alright, I'm gonna make a build for them next time I see them. I never went through with it, but I remember I had a plan where I was actually gonna play Plague and like burn like Auto Haven or something like that. I was gonna burn like Blood Echo, to like make it so you couldn't use Dead Heart anymore. I was gonna burn like I don't remember my full build anymore actually, but like I had like a full build ready where I was like, you know what, that's what I'm gonna do, but I never went forward with it. Instead I decided to keep on practicing the killers I had already enjoyed at the time. But, getting my shit kicked in for the first time like that definitely inspired me to want to become a much better player, which maybe I'm not there yet, but it definitely started the idea that I still have a lot more to learn to this game. Would anybody else like to share what, like, if there's any players that they looked up to get better at the game?
Shout out to Scott John though. I love him.
Yeah, same here.
I can definitely just put something quick in here. Is definitely when I first started playing the game, I think the very first content creators that I like watched and tried to actually learn the game from is it's funny to say, especially with like my opinions nowadays, but I know True Talent was a huge one. That was like the first one I found actually. When I first looked up DBD on YouTube, that was the first videos I found was True Talent videos. And he was probably the person that kind of taught me the basics of the game. But then eventually, like with especially the whole no stock ghost face thing, that was a mess. But I strayed away from that, and then just other people like Scott for most people, and then like Zubat and like Ots even, like everyone, all the just top all the top DVD creators all just inspired me to keep getting better at the game, and yeah, so pretty much a good mix of all of them actually.
I was gonna say for me, and I mentioned him earlier, Freekill99, who was the he's been the captain of he was the captain of Instant Dodge from the start, and he was kind of widely considered as one of the pioneers of the NA comp scene. Since I mainly focus on Survivor in comp, I learned pretty much everything I have to offer from him. And as time has gone on and I've met more people in the scene, I've been able to kind of network more and learn and pick up things individually from other players. I've over time I've met a lot of the EU players and I've picked up a lot of things from them. I'm very fortunate in the fact that I play with a very talented roster, and everyone on my team is, they've all taught me at least one thing that I've kind of implemented over time. But I think that's the beauty of participating in comp, is that you get to build this network, and you can always reach out to someone to find out if there's something that you can either work on to improve, or if there's something that you never really saw or considered before that you might be able to think about, and it'll help you improve later on.
I mean, yeah, I Freakout19, and I would also be an inspiration. I think each and every one of us have that one person or that one inspiration that keeps pushing us through. And for me, I think it's just my friends who play comp. I mean, content creator wise, I think the entire reason why I started playing Kill in the first place is because of Zubat. He's obviously somebody that you watch, for Killer, and you want to become better. You just watch him. But in general, my friends are big inspirations. And it's the reason why I just want to keep getting better and better. And have them to thank for everything, obviously, that I've learned so far.
Yeah, because like we all have like those players that we've looked up to at one point or another. So, because I think it's a very good thing, because it shows that we didn't really go into this thinking that we were in the best position we could be. We went into this knowing that there were ways that we could improve, and there were people that we found along the way that allowed us to improve. So one of my final questions here for the night is, where do you see the comp scene going? Do you see it going in a positive direction now that it has more attention to it? Like, where do you see the comp scene going in, like, a year or two from now?
I wouldn't be surprised if more bigger companies like G Fuel started making more tournaments themselves, because I thought that, like, other than BOTB, I thought G Fuel having a tournament that's historic, because that's an actual first bigger organization that was willing to take a dab at DBD. And Twitch Rebels was another one too. Like, they've dabbled in it, I think, twice now. But no, I have a very strong feeling that more companies will take a dab in it. I don't know within a year or two if we'll see, like, quote unquote Cloud9 and like other orgs like that taking a shot at it. But I think more orgs will definitely take shots at DBD, and I think it's going in a really good direction, honestly.
I mean, DBD in general has been growing.
I mean, basically, it's kind of wherever this community takes it, right?
Exactly.
Like we can go as far as we want to go. It's just a matter of like how much we want to do with it.
Yeah.
DBD is a game that definitely is led by its community, and if the community stops like trying to take it places, then it's gonna stop going places.
If we keep on the track that it's going right now, like it's just gonna keep getting better and better.
I'm
think-
optimistic that some change will come along that would like boost it. Like the developers one day having, a really nice gesture and being like, hey, here's more tools for spectating. You can now hide perks, you can now seed maps, you can now replay the game, you can now I don't know, have survivors all have default skins or something, just a small update in that direction I think would be so good as well.
I think the biggest thing though is going to become, like, I think comp will only be as strong as healthy as the game is. because I think when Daddy servers came out, comp died for a good portion of time because the servers weren't that great, right? And no one really wanted to do it at that time. So I think as long as the game stays relatively healthy, we'll be okay.
When hit registration came up, that also put a major dent, and there had to be a lot of testing.
Yeah.
That's also a really good point.
Yeah, like I remember I was watching Zuba at one point, and like literally all it took for the dedicated servers to really hit the fan is you uncap your FPS, and all of a sudden it's just you're probably playing it like, you know, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, you know, the game was just like so laggy then, like, you know, you would have good FPS, but the servers would just die on your end. So you definitely have like some people who would uncap their FPS and it would cause problems with like the dedicated servers, but it looks like they were able to luckily fix that by allowing players to increase their FPS, but capping it to like, you know, 120. So they
That
were at
would
least
be
able
nice.
to find a fix. Alright, so is there any other notes you would like to add on to this? Like, you know, anything else that anybody wanted to bring up but just didn't get the chance to?
By
I
my
guess-
audiobook on how to loop the Z wall.
Actually, I do have, I guess, one final question. So I was wondering, like, with Bloodlust randomly being tested on live servers, is there anything else they could test as well, like Bloodlust, that could be healthy for the game?
No hag.
Maybe
I
like an
think-
experimental map seeding feature?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Hide the fact that there's an obsession. Just hide it. See what happens.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's a horrible idea.
No, it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Yeah. Or yeah. No, I don't know. I think I'd like to know if there's a massive difference between games where DS comes into play and games where it doesn't.
The only reason I think that would be a decent idea is the fact that people who those kind of people who's like, oh, no obsession's gonna tunnel everybody, they'll get a pretty good shock when they get DS. It'll be hilarious.
Yeah. No. I wonder actually. You know, it's maybe at like, you know, rank 20 people don't think about these things too much, but I wonder if at red ranks when there's no obsession, if the tunneling is like significantly higher, because I suspect it might be.
Well, here's my thoughts though, because like if you hide the obsession, then how are you gonna deal with obsession perks for killers? So my idea is, like, you know, what if there was always an obsession, but it had nothing to do with if the survivor had an obsession perk or if the killer had an
Yeah,
obsession perk?
that works as well.
Yeah, so let there always be an obsession. See how it changes the game with that, and that'd be like a nice little experiment as well to see, like, you know, do the matches end up being more fun? Do the killers continue to tunnel? Like, what does the mindset become at that point? And, you know, maybe for other experiments, what they could do is, like, you know, they could do, like, I remember Scott brought up an idea in one of his videos where, like, they would have, like, very basic changes to certain perks or certain powers where, like, they briefly touch it up. And, like, you know, just, you know, number changes and nothing more than that, and experiment with that for, like, you know, maybe a week and see how that goes. Because I know they've been doing map experiments where, like, they've been making certain maps more common. As you may all know, the 700 variations of Bad Hand we've been getting for the past few weeks. But, you know, little experiments like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, am I crazy for saying that I've seen, like, 700 Bad Hams?
No, not at all.
Mm-mm.
Just end it. Just end my life.
Please.
Delete Badham, please.
Oh.
Actually, for
So
another
ridiculous.
experiment, can we make Bad Ham no longer a map? For like a
Always
week.
delete every map except Hawkins.
It's Badham, but you spawn inside school and all the exits are blocked and the breakable walls cannot be broken. It's just cool. It's just like 2 floors.
Z-wall only for every top.
And the basement's always there.
Welcome to
for
Bad
one-
Ham
All
preschool.
survivors spawn in the basement
Just for
of the
1
game.
week, see what happens.
And all the generators are there, and like the walls just filled with pallets.
There's no generators, only death.
Oh.
Put a generator in the basement, see what happens.
They have to go down and repair the hooks for the killer to hook them.
Yeah. the survivor goes down to get the chest to see the killer bent down at the bottom of the hooks, like just working on the hook.
I like this
All right.
experiment.
I'm glad we're not in charge of this game.
We'd be perfect for making the game better. What do you mean?
Yep. Let's get all of us on the dev team. Cool.
Alright, so do you have any other thoughts for the game?
I don't think so.
Alright. Well, it's been a oh wait, actually I do have one last question. This has been in the back burner of my mind, and I kind of forgot about it, but... Alright, so as we know, there are more killer options in the game now for the comp scene, but what is one killer you don't see very often in the comp scene that you think more people should give a shot that have not been considered? Even if it's just situationally, like, you know, you get, like, the perfect map for it.
Clown.
Maybe more Bubba.
Or Bubba?
Yeah, probably more Bubba.
Maybe, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
I
say
I
I
have
say
to
play
think
I
hard.
say Plague and Deathslinger.
Or
Or
Demo.
Yeah, I feel
slept
like
on.
I feel
Oh,
like
Demo, yeah,
Plague.
definitely.
Yeah.
I feel like Plague is pretty slept on.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody
We
who plays
can-
killer in comp, I think. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
We can just leave Slinger out of that. We don't need to see more of those.
Slinger no longer exists.
Put him down.
Yeah, we don't need any more Slingers.
We don't talk about
but-
Slinger.
Yeah, don't bring that up, please.
It's fine, Legion will seal his gun afterwards.
That's fine. I don't mind Legion, but I don't want Slinger.
I would honestly like to see a lot more Demogorgon. I think Demogorgon has a lot of potential that people are ignoring.
How many Blights are
Yeah.
in the comp scene anyways?
Mm,
There's
I-
been a good
again,
amount, actually.
The thing with Blythe is a lot of people don't think it's he's a killer with great what's the word, intimidation. I mean, if you play him against any uncoordinated team, obviously you're gonna do well. But I've never tried him against a very coordinated team, but every team that I have played Blythe against have fell, and it also relies on the build as well. But I think Blight is a little bit underrated in the comp scene.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, because I actually found something out, like, for a while I ignored Blight for so long where I was like, oh yeah, he's fun, but I'm not really addicted to him. And then one day I accidentally figured out how to, by complete accident, I figured out how to completely shut down the cow tree window. So, like, you just can't even use it against him. Now, if they use the pallet, then they can still do that, but the window you just completely shut down with them, and that's the one thing I opened my eyes up to realize, hey, you know, maybe there's more to Blight than what I actually figured out. Like, you know, there's maybe more to his power that should be considered. So I feel like Blight would be my pick.
I mean, a lot of times when you play Blight, a lot of people feel like they're safe on certain tiles, and then if you come across somebody who knows what they're doing, you can flick and like hit them when they have no clue you can.
And
It's
what's
happened
really
to me a lot playing Blight.
And what's really cool about him is that, you know, so some people get annoyed by the fact that you slide off of certain walls, but through those walls I actually see a real potential in the fact that you can actually utilize that in a way to...
Yeah, to like
Mhm.
glide around the same as Demo, or he can shred around the corner, which is
Yeah.
super scary.
Not only that, but to navigate to areas where you couldn't get before. So, like, for instance, what I would do with Cow Tree is I would turn in towards, like, that, towards the window, but then turn back out to the wall that's, right in front of it, right? And you wouldn't be able to do that if you couldn't, slide off the, walls on Cow Tree. You just stick onto it. So, like, having that would be, like, you know, making more people realize that. Just, you know, it allows you to actually make so many more plays that just weren't possible if you didn't slide off of certain walls. Alright, well that's all I had to go on about there. So I feel like Blight's my pick. Do we have any other killers that are not very well considered?
Not that I can think of. I mean, obviously,
No, not really.
Plague is something that, you know, is I didn't take a look into, but obviously Otz has other plans when he picked her in a tournament.
I genuinely think that, you know, I got away with that because the team that I played against was not expecting it. But give someone that is dedicated a couple thousand hours to master Plague, the same way some people, you know, use 2,000 hours to master Hunters, and I think they'll be very, very scary.
Yeah, I'd like to see more plagues. That'd be an interesting topic to discuss.
That's the thing, though, right? Like some killers, there may be more below the surface than we initially understand or kind of estimate. And more killers, you know, they might have a more of a strategical approach as opposed to a brute force, I'm going to down you and chase super fast, like Nurse or Spirit approach, right? So I think it's important that, you know, at least people who play the killer role kind of explore more than just, Nurse, Spirit, Pyramid Head, Freddy, whatever it may be, and kind of take at least take the time to look at other killers to see who else might be viable on a certain map or with a certain rule set or whatever it may be.
Yeah, the biggest one to me is I still kind of wonder if Doc is actually compatible. Like, I think with decent add-ons probably, but I don't know. It depends.
I think he is on a small map. You just can't get him on like a massive one or even like, a medium to large map. I think the small to medium maps are fine for him though, and I think that's where he can actually shine. Because he's like the interesting part about his rework is that I feel like his rework didn't actually make him stronger. It made him easier to play him well though. And that's the thing, because what Doctor can do now, aside from the extra range, was always possible. It's just that now it's significantly easier to do and achieve that level of gameplay with Doctor. Well, actually, maybe certain things weren't possible before, but most of them were. So I feel like Doctor is definitely an option, but I think you would need to have a smaller map. Alright, so I know I've had you all here for a little while here, like 2.5 hours now, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here. So is there any final thoughts you'd like to contribute to this?
Thank you for putting this together and inviting us. Obviously.
Yeah, thank you for having me again.
I appreciate it. It was super fun.
How much
Anytime.
are we
enjoyed
getting
it.
paid?
Oh, what was that?
How much are we getting paid? Can we talk?
Oh, yeah,
Talk financial.
yeah, so the most I can spare is 10 blood points. And
Alright.
20 shards.
Can we do 12?
Alright,
Can we
I'll
do
be
12?
expecting the code in my DMs right after.
Okay. Perfect. But really, I've loved having everybody here because, like, I think we had a lot of really good conversations here, and I think, this will hopefully give more insight into the comp scene and just, DBD in general to people who haven't really played it on a high level as of yet. Now, with that being said, again, I really appreciate everyone for showing up here tonight. It's actually been a blast talking about this.
Yes, sir.
Yup.
Alright, so without further ado, we'll be doing our next podcast on Wednesday at 8 p.m. I normally like to do podcasts on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and I still need to figure out what I need to do for Wednesday, actually, I'll be honest. But, yeah, if any of you are ever up for being in another podcast, feel free to let me know, and it's really been a blast. I hope you all have a great night, and that's really all I have to go on about, so have a great night, everybody.
Hey, you too.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a pleasure being here.
Night and night
Thank you.
all.
Thanks for having
Alright.
us.